Okay, young man, you're on.
Okay. And still no Mary or looks like Paul's in.
I'm here.
Okay, cool. And no Mary though.
Mary just came in.
Okay. All right, let's get started. So this will be the October Pro Board meeting at 7:03. We'll start with public comment. So is there any public comment?
Yes. Actually, I'd like to introduce a fellow by the name of Matthew Brown. He is a friend of mine, and he is also a member of our consulting corps. He actually has a couple of grants, quite lucrative, that he was able to find and scrounge up, that he would like to present to you all today.
All right, yeah, we can go that way. Well, actually, let's go through the approval of minutes, and then we'll get right to that if that works. But I am getting a lot of feedback. I don't know if you are, anyone else is, from your microphone.
Yes, I'm getting a lot too.
All right, well, let's do the approval of minutes. So Kyle, are you there?
He's muted. Kyle, you're muted. Oh, you're still muted.
Unmute.
There you go.
There you
I
are.
go.
Okay,
All right.
so did you update it after we talked last time? The
Yes,
minutes?
I did. I put in
Okay.
the 4 things you wanted changed. And
Okay,
then
cool.
I sent it out to everybody.
Okay, did anyone else have any changes or updates to that?
Nope.
No? Okay. All right, great. So, yeah, Eli, if you want to go ahead and start, and we can go from there.
Certainly. Thank you, Greg. That'd be wonderful.
Wait, was that approval of minutes? Is that what that just was?
Yes.
Okay.
First and second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you could say, like, well, I'll do it. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the September Open Pro
second
Committee
that.
meeting.
I'll second it.
So everyone in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay. I don't know how many people that was, but passes. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, so we're good on the minutes. All right. Eli, you there?
Yes.
right.
So as
Go
I
for it.
mentioned earlier, I would like to introduce Matthew Brown. And he just has a few quick things he would like to say in regards to some grants that might actually be very beneficial for what we want to do in the township.
Sounds good.
First of all, thank you very much for allowing me to, excuse me, join your meeting this evening. And I do apologize. I'm doing this from my telephone, so we'll see how steady my hand is in holding so I can see all of you. Really, I want to talk about 2 things. Back in the summer, Eli was sharing with me some of the information relative to your interest in expanding your trail system, improving your trail system, studying and updating your master plan, et cetera. I have a consulting engineering business. I'm not here to sell you anything. I do have, however, a grant specialist on staff whose sole purpose is to look for grants. And for many of our municipal clients, we have looked for grants, and we have discovered about 8 or 9 available grants for purposes of expansion trail systems. So I had her assemble them into a single email and forwarded that to Eli. He will be forwarding it on to each of you after this evening's meeting. What there is a description of the grant, whether or not there's a matching contribution required, and there's a link that you can go to and you can read the grants. Now, rather than go through 8 different grants with you right now, they're both state and county grants. So I would recommend that you go through and take a look at them. There's up to 85% grant monies available for a trail system. So that would mean that the township would actually have to come up with the other 15%. That's probably one of the best ones. The common ones are more of a 50-50 split. But since it is free money, the money is available through either Chester County or the DCED in Harrisburg. We can assist you in, or once you've had a chance to look at those grants and have discovered that you think that those, that 1 or 2 or several might work for you, we can assist you at no cost to you to assemble the grant application and submit for it. So I encourage you to take a look at the grants, take a look at the list. This is solely, again, trying to react to something that my friend Eli has shared with me that your board has looked at very, very closely. The other thing I wanted to talk about really quickly is he also shared with me your interest in putting in a garden in Parsons Park. And one of the other things that I do, because I'm not 25 anymore, so I'm getting close to retirement, is I am the chair of a foundation, a memorial foundation for a very special woman who passed away a number of years ago. And one of the things that we have done is we worked with groups, mostly municipal groups, in order to garner recognition for her. I talked to my board about the possibility of participating, since Eli had also mentioned that you were looking for some form of endowment, some form of volunteer work, et cetera. And my board has authorized me to offer to you, if you're interested, a upfront endowment of $2,500, and then a yearly endowment of $750 for a period not to exceed 5 years. We thought that would kick off the idea of the garden in Parsons Park. Now, there is one caveat to this, because obviously if we're going to put up the money for it, we would like some sort of memorial provided to our namesake. And so whether it would be a plaque that we would be happy to pay for, but such as, in memory of, the woman's name is Nancy D. Davidson, and either in memory of or provided by the Nancy D. Davidson Memorial Trust. So that would be our only stipulation on providing the monies, that the recognition of our namesake is provided. So anyway, like I said, I'm authorized to provide you a letter formally offering you that if you're so interested. Obviously, you're going to have to, we're just a foundation. We don't arrange for garden or volunteer work or anything such as that, but we can assist in funding. And we're hopeful that the $2,500 will go a long way in establishing the garden, and the $750 will go in for a period of not to exceed 5 years, will go a ways for purposes of maintaining that garden over the next 5 years. So if you're interested and you want me to provide that, I will send a letter to, I only know Eli's address, but I could send a letter to the township basically offering to do so. So
Wow.
those are my 2 things.
Well, thank you. First off, that's incredible. We definitely appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and offering that. I mean, I don't see that being a problem at all. I'm sure, I don't know if the other board members would like to have any input on that.
Yeah, I'd second that. That's an awesome offer. Matthew, are you a resident of Franklin, or where are you located?
I'm actually located in Lancaster County personally.
Oh, okay.
And my company, however, we serve 26 of the municipalities in Chester County. So I have, I guess, a strong base here in Chester County. And but both from a grant perspective, now the foundation is not my company. It's a personal thing that I'm involved in.
Right.
And they're looking for ways to make sure that our namesake is memorialized wherever we can. And we try to be a little bit entrepreneurial in it. What we really want is we would like a garden with a plaque that says Nancy D. Davidson on it. So if you're in need of a garden, we have a little bit of cash that we can provide for that, because again, this is important to us to spread the word of somebody who is very special.
That's an awesome offer. I think I don't think we'll have many objections to that.
Yeah.
But so let me be clear, it was 2,500 to install and then 750 for 5 years to maintain?
Correct. And you'll have to do all the arrangements for the garden. You'll have to do the arrangements for getting the volunteer work, picking the plantings, etc.
Well, I wanted to ask about picking the plantings. Do you all want any input on the design or layout or plantings of, what type of garden or flowers or whatever?
We don't need to. We're not. I'm a chemical engineer, so my fashion sense or my sense of style is almost zero.
Okay.
So I would leave it to somebody who is much more astute at such things. And I'm sure the talent within the township can assist with that. Our stipulation is that we would want a plaque recognizing our namesake, and we would take care of providing the plaque.
No, that's great. Yeah, I understand. I think that's an awesome offer, and no
Okay.
problem. But let me go back to your first offer of the grants.
Correct.
We always need help finding grants, but our issue is writing them. But when you said you would write them at no cost to us, how does that work? Are you donating that, or you're saying the grant issue?
Oh, no, we're not donating it. We are in a sense. What we're doing is we will write the grants at no cost to you. Okay. One of the things that both DCED and the county allow is recovery of grant writing fees. So grant writing application. So what happens is once you establish what you want the grant for, what the cost of the project's going to be, and some of these grants are as large as $250,000. So what we will do is it doesn't cost a great deal for us to write these grants. We have specialists in-house that do that, but we tack on to that the cost of us writing the grants.
And what happens if we're not successful though? What if we're not awarded the grant?
That's my risk.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So what I'm saying to you is, if you don't get the grant, you don't owe me a penny. I don't get paid. I'm not asking for any reimbursement. If we're successful at getting the grant, we would like to be reimbursed for the effort we put forth.
Yeah. Well, that's a great offer.
And the only thing we offer is that, in your travels around Chester County and such like that, we get positive words from you.
And what's the name of your company?
It's Arrow, ARRO Consulting Incorporated. You can check out our website, and you might even find about a 10-year-old picture of me on there.
Okay.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
we appreciate that. And
Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
It sounds
Definitely
almost too
think
good to be true. It sounds awesome. Thank you,
Well,
Eli.
Yes, I would say thank Eli, because Eli really went the extra yard to try and ensure that he contacted me. He talked to me about it. He expressed what you had discussed at your meetings. And I said, like I said, he really went the extra yard towards saying, is there something that we could do to assist? Because he is aware, we are friends of the family, and he is aware of some of the work that we do. So
Thank you so much, both of you.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Greg, is that something for the plaque? Would you have to bring that to the board? I'm not sure how you would handle that. Would you bring that to the board's attention, or
Yeah.
for the garden,
the board of supervisors? We answer to the board of supervisors. So
correct. I don't know how it's set up within Franklin Township, because it's set up differently in each municipality. I do work for almost 200 municipalities within the Commonwealth. And I think probably, that you as a advisory board may have to go to the supervisors to garner their permission to do so, because essentially I would be committing my foundation to Franklin Township for purposes of the garden. And since this is a township park, to put a plaque up in the township park, I'm sure the supervisors would want some input on it.
Right, and something in writing so that you would have some promise that we would keep the plaque up and fulfill that.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, our goal there is, it's a charitable trust. And what we're trying to do is spread the name of somebody that we think is very, very special. And the trust that we've actually got some pretty good funding for the foundation so far. And one of the things that Nancy liked were flowers and gardens. And
Could you tell us a little bit about Nancy, just so that maybe Greg could have that information to tell the board?
well, I will tell you, she was a single mother of 3, and she was a very wonderful person. She made clothes. She was a wonderful seamstress, wonderful cook. She loved her gardens and such like that. She unfortunately was taken at a very young age due to lung cancer.
Gotcha.
And that,
Yeah. Well, we have high hopes for the garden, and we would love to honor Nancy with that. And that's actually one of our topics that we're going to discuss is the planting of the garden. So this is perfect timing. And yeah, I think it'll, if you want to forward that information to Eli, and he can, give you our contact.
Okay.
I think, yeah, I mean, I don't see how the board can refuse such a generous offer.
That's right. I don't think it'll be a problem.
Yeah.
I will email a letter from the foundation to Eli with our commitment and our
Okay.
stipulation on the plaque. I will also add that once the plaque is designed, before we actually put it into manufacture, we will bring it to you or the Board of Supervisors. You direct us how to do that for approval. We're not going to put up any plaque that's not been approved by you or the Board of Supervisors. So the only thing we do insist on is the recognition and the memorial for Nancy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as far as the grants are concerned, Eli has an email right now with a list of 8 grants. I encourage you very strongly to go to each one of those links and start to think about whether or not there's a grant there that will suit you. Like I said, the grants operate for purposes of updating trail plans, providing for reconstruction of existing trails, providing for construction of new trails, providing for purchase of land for trails. So take a look at those grants, and they are all matching grants. So obviously the Board of Supervisors will have to be involved because there'll be some amount of money that the township will have to put up to get the matching grant. So for instance, like I said, it varies between 50% and 85%. So that means the township's portion will be up between 15 and 50%. So, but again, it's free money, and we will write the application. Our hit rate on grants is very, very, very high. We have secured over $3 million worth of grants in the last 2 years for our clients. So, and again, what I ask for is allow us to put the cost of writing the grant into the application for the grant. And if we're successful at securing the grant and you get the money, we get paid. We bill you and we get paid.
Yep. Very good.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I think I see Jack and Robin salivating over there. We better be careful.
Well, Eli also has my contact information. If any of you have any questions, when he forwards you the email, there's a string. My email, my name is Matthew Brown. My email address is on the string of there. Please feel free to send me a note if you have any questions or have any thoughts on either issue. Okay.
All right. Well, great. And thank you for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. And with that, since my hand is not shaking all that badly, I will depart. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks again. And we'll be in touch for sure.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Before we get off,
Go ahead.
before we get off the topic of grants, we still have the Pico Green Region grant that needs attention, and that needs to be submitted by the end of this month.
Yeah, I agree. That was actually something I was going to bring up in shortly. And I'm assuming that might be in that list of 8 grants. But I did want to get to the other presenters so we don't kind of hold them on too long. If everyone's okay with that, unless you had other input on the grant, Jeff.
Now let's get to.
No, I'm good, sir. I just wanted to, while I was thinking about it, I just wanted to mention the Pico Green Region Grant.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, so let's get so next up we'll talk with Jack Stefferud and Robin Jenny. They're both of Natural Lands. They work in the Land Protection Division, and they're gonna kind of give us some information as far as easements and just kind of the stuff they work on that could definitely help us in our board. So Robin, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Am I able to share my screen? I'm gonna give it a go. Oh, no, I think I need permission.
Yep, let me do that.
Thanks, Jeff.
You're very welcome.
All right. Are you seeing the presentation, hopefully?
Yes, I see your screen.
Okay, with the presentation?
I
We
see
see
a-
a big bear.
We see a grizzly bear.
Really?
Oh, there you go.
So
Okay.
Robin and I are going to tag team a little bit. I'm going to start off with the kind of the basic we are natural lands, and Robin is going to take over with the more detailed conservation easements and those kinds of things. So go ahead, Robin, start the next slide.
Okay.
So Natural Lands was founded by a guy named Austin Jenkins, who in the late 40s and early 50s became enamored with birding. He was an accountant in downtown Philadelphia, and one of the best places for birding, which was very close to his office, was the Tinicum Marsh, just outside of downtown Philadelphia. In the mid 50s, he found out that Gulf Oil was planning on dredging the Delaware River and filling the marsh with the dredgings. So he got together with a group of people and established the Philadelphia Conservationists, who were ultimately successful in preserving the marsh and transferring it. And it is now today the John Hines National Wildlife Refuge. Next slide. So this is the National Wildlife Refuge. It's unique for 2 things. One is that it is the last and largest remaining tidal marsh in the state of Philadelphia. And secondarily, it is the only national wildlife refuge within a city limits anywhere in the United States.
Wow.
Next slide. So land conservation then, is important, and land conservation today, continues to be important, increasingly so. The slide on the left is from the 50s. The slide on the right is projected into the 2030s. And we lose about 8 acres a day, even now today, from development. And clearly with COVID, the access to the out of doors is more poignant than ever. Next slide. As an organization, Natural Lands Trust believes in 3 primary goals: saving open space, caring for nature, and connecting people with the out of doors. Next slide. From the saving of open space, we do a number of different things. We buy it to keep. Clearly, the Peacedale Preserve is in Franklin Township. Total, from our beginnings in the early 60s, we now have 44 nature preserves totaling 23,000 acres. We buy land to give away, like the John Hines National Wildlife Refuge. We continue to do that today. In the past 10 to 15 years, we've added basically 1,000 acres including lands to Marsh Creek State Park, French Creek State Park. We've established 2 new Bureau of Forestry preserves, and we added lands to state game lands. And then clearly, we also do conservation easements, some of which are in Franklin Township, and we help through planning and zoning to preserve land during the development process. Next slide. We believe in caring for nature on our preserves. You know, we have somewhere around 80 employees now. Almost half of our staff is dedicated to our preserve system, you know, including, you know, managing invasives, taking care of the trail systems, wildlife populations. And because of our expertise in managing our own preserves, we help others through land management plans preserve their lands, you know, both municipal and private lands. Next slide. And we connect people with nature. You know, clearly, you know, we firmly believe and know for ourselves that, you know, our relationship with nature has been important to our lives. And we want to make sure that everybody has that access to nature because we believe it is, you know, a human necessity. So our preserves are open free of charge. We have events. We have thankfully, we've got a very wonderful volunteer corps that helps us with our preserves. And we're working more and more in underserved communities to bring nature to the city. Next slide. Most of our work is in the greater Philadelphia metropolitan region, you know, Montgomery, Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Berks counties, and down into South Jersey. Next slide.
Okay, so I think it's my turn.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk more about the different methods of private property conservation and how natural lands could help you achieve some of these goals. So first, I'm going to review what a conservation easement, ag easement, and the benefits of a fee simple acquisition would be. So before going into any of those, as many of you probably know, land ownership really is owning sort of a bundle of rights. It's also been likened to a bundle of sticks where, you know, you own the property, but you could sell off a stick to, you know, the gas company to put a pipeline easement through your land, or you could sell the water rights. So you still own the property, but you don't own the rights to the water, either on or under the property. So there's a number of different ways that you can still own your property, but give either various types of rights to other entities. So with conservation easements, you're essentially, the landowner decides that they want to restrict development in the future to very similar to what is in position at the current time. And they basically grant an easement to a holder, which would be natural lands in our case, to basically hold that easement and kind of control what goes on within and make sure that nothing is done contrary to the original easement. So a conservation easement is voluntary. You have to have a willing landowner to go into it. It's governed by a legally binding contract. It's just like a deed or a mortgage. It gets recorded in the official public records. It's between the landowner, who would be considered the grantor, and the holder of the easement, who would be the grantee. It is permanent, and that's actually a requirement both to meet IRS requirements for if somebody wanted to take a charitable contribution, and also the Land Trust Accreditation Commission requirement. Natural Lands is an accredited land trust under that commission and has several rigorous standards and practices that we have to adhere to. So ensuring that an easement is permanent is one of those. And then the easement essentially, like I said, limits the uses of the land to protect various resources that you might find on the land, whether it's ecological or agricultural soils. It's a number of different resources that you may wish to preserve. So again, this is part of the bundle of rights or the bundle of sticks. So the landowner still owns the land, pays taxes, and they can sell it to another landowner the easement goes with the land. So any future landowners into perpetuity are subject to this conservation easement. It is considered a negative easement. So earlier I had mentioned you might grant a gas company the right to put an easement and a pipeline through your land. So you're giving them a positive right, the right to do something. In this case, it's a negative easement in which it restricts some of the use of the property, and the grantee, which would be natural lands in this case, has obligations and responsibility to uphold that easement. We use model language for the legal document that's been crafted by experts. They're now called We Can Serve PA, but it used to be the Pennsylvania Land Trust Association. So they have spent years revising the legal document, and it's a very strong document. And then the donation of an easement or partial donation can qualify as a charitable gift, resulting in deductions, a tax deduction through the IRS. So I've mentioned that natural lands could hold a conservation easement as an accredited land trust, but also public agencies are eligible to hold a conservation easement. So that could be from the municipal level up to the federal level. Although often landowners are concerned about, especially a local government, a municipal government holding their easement, because then it's sort of subject to any local political changes in the future. And while you might feel really confident in your current, board makeup, these are permanent and forever. So it really helps to have a third party kind of overseeing the easement requirements. So one of basically upholding the easement requires annual monitoring. So we traditionally have sent monitors out every year. We have almost 400 conservation easements that Natural Lands holds. So we have a combination of our stewardship staff that works at our various preserves, and then other staff who will go out once a year and take a look at the property, compare it with the easement, and make sure that nothing is happening on the property that's prohibited by the easement. In our new COVID world, we are actually going to start trying some satellite and aerial imagery that we could use for monitoring. That has been approved by the Land Trust Accreditation Commission. So, so that'll be part of our new repertoire. But every year the easement is monitored one way or another. We make sure that the original conservation objectives are upheld. And again, if you remember initially, I talked about the permanence of the easement, and that's required both by the IRS and the Accreditation Commission. And this is a big part of it, to show that we will continue to monitor year after year. And we do have the authority to take a landowner to court if needed, but in the vast majority of cases, we're able to work with the landowner, to reach an agreement of how to resolve the violation. So this is an example of the Ford Farm property, which is in Franklin Township and has a conservation easement on it that's held by Natural Lands. And so I'm using this to show you the different protection areas that are traditional with a conservation easement. So each protection area has a different level of restriction. The highest protection area, which is area A, contains sensitive natural areas. So any kind of natural resource like woodlands, steep slopes, streams, wetlands, anything that is really critical to protect that you don't want to be developed or changed in any way. Those would be in the highest protection area. I'm not sure if my cursor or if my mouse will show up, but here's protection area A, which covers a stream. And then here's another protection area A that covers another stream and some woodlands. So those are the areas that receive the highest protection and have the most strict restrictions on use. Very little improvements, really just repair or replacement of existing improvements is typically permitted in that area. And then the next area would be the standard protection area, which a lot of this property is. This is considered the working landscape, so it's often in agricultural use agricultural use, from anything from crops to pastures to woodlots. So you can see obviously the Ford farm is an active farm and has a lot of open ag fields. And so all of this area is protection area B. And so that protects the soils that are on the property to make sure that the farming use is going to be sustainable and allow that land to be used for farming well into the future. And so there are fewer restrictions than the highest protection area, but there are still some. There's restriction on the total impervious coverage that's permitted. There are some height restrictions. So there are still some tight restrictions to work within there. And then the last area is the minimal protection area, which is C, or also called the building envelope. And that is where we try to cover any residential structures. If there's a large area of agricultural structures like barns, we try to encapsulate that in the minimal protection area as well. So we're really trying to kind of encompass the built area in minimal protection area. And that has the least restrictions. There are still some. There may be a limit on the number of residences or on an amount of impervious coverage, but much more is permitted in this area. And while we're crafting these plans, we really try to consider that this is forever. So we try to think about, you don't want to lock everything in as it is. So especially in the minimal protection area, we try to provide wiggle room so that in the future, if a future landowner wants a swimming pool or something like that's a reasonable accessory to the residential use, we try to make it so that there is some room for expansion there. So conservation easements are fairly flexible in that, we're happy to talk with the landowners and get their vision for the use of the property now and into the future, what's important to them on the land. But one of the IRS requirements and the Accreditation Commission requirements are that there is a substantial element of conservation. And that can include really the same things I had mentioned before: stream corridors, wetlands, agricultural soils, any kind of meadow grassland for habitat and for biodiversity. Scenic views from a public road is also a conservation objective, and then steep slopes to avoid erosion and sedimentation. So these are examples. There are probably a couple others that you could come up with, but these are the most common. And the types of restrictions that would be placed on a property through a conservation easement, I had sort of mentioned in the previous slide, but we don't permit removal of any of the soil through, for example, ball and burlap nursery, because again, we're trying to keep the soils healthy and able to promote agriculture for a long time. Again, limitation on number of houses, types of uses, and impervious surface coverage. So there is flexibility, but there are parameters that we want to make sure that we meet, both to be consistent with the IRS standards and the accreditation standards, but also to uphold the principle of what you're trying to protect. So how do you determine the value of the easement? So for a typical appraisal, the appraiser is going to look at the land value with the building value, do some comparables, and come out with a reasonable value. For a conservation easement, they're actually sort of doing two different appraisals. So they do one for the market value of the land before an easement is placed. So basically the land as it is now, and they don't consider any of the structures because we're not involved with the structures. It's specifically the land that we're putting the easement on. So they'll do the market value before the easement, and then they will use the hypothetical condition and sort of pretend that there is a conservation easement now. And they will then do a second appraisal comparing those with other eased properties and come up with a value for the conservation easement itself. So it generally comes out looking like, here's the market value as is, here's the value after an easement would be placed, so then here's the easement value as a kind of subtraction. So for example, if you have a property that's $627,000 before the easement, and then they find that the easement is worth, or I'm sorry, then they find that after the easement, the property would be worth $300,000. Through subtraction, the easement itself is then worth $327,000. And so that is the amount that the landowner could very generously donate and kind of work towards a tax deduction, or you could, the township could outright purchase the easement for that amount. You can negotiate over the amount, but that's essentially how you kind of start out and determine what the value of the easement is. So yeah, so these are the options for the acquisition. Sometimes the landowner is just really passionate. They want to conserve their property and they just donate the whole easement outright, which is just such a generous and wonderful thing. And again, as long as it serves those public conservation purposes, it can qualify as the charitable contribution. You can also do a bargain sale where the landowner will donate a portion and then gets paid for a portion. And that could be either money from the Township Open Space Committee or from grant funding. And similarly, you need to show the public conservation purpose to qualify for the contribution. Or it could be a full purchase, which could be completely from the township. It could be a combination of grants and township, or, it's happened that you could cover almost all of it with a grant or combination of grants. So when you're pursuing a conservation easement, you've got your willing landowner. There are several different steps that have to be undertaken to get to actually recording the easement. So of course you want to do a title search and get a title commitment, because if you're going to hold the easement, that's essentially holding some rights to the property. So you want to make sure that you have the chain of title is clean, that there are no liens on the property. We of course need the appraisal. I have the S in parentheses there because some grantors, including Chester County is one, depending on the first appraisal, depending on the grant funding amount, they may require a second appraisal, or they can also require a review of the first appraisal, which is less expensive. Another appraisal takes a look at the first one and, kind of either makes suggestions or signs off. If grant applications are going to be a part of the easement, then we have to apply for those. It sounded like Matthew has some good expertise in that. So, Natural Lands is always very flexible about, pick and choose. If you would like to work with us, you can pick and choose which parts you would like us to do. Although we do have good experience and success with grant applications too, just saying. So we also will have to have a survey of the property done, partly to make sure that we have the outside boundaries correct, but also once we have those protection areas laid out, we need to have those properly marked as well, so that when we have an easement monitor go out, they can easily find where the line between the protection areas is, and also for landowners to know where those lines are. We compile baseline property documentation. This is an IRS requirement, but also is very helpful on our end. So it's a combination, it's a really interesting document. It's a combination of the current use, the land use history, what is on there now in terms of different structures and impervious coverage, and then an assessment of all of the natural resources that you are going to protect through this conservation easement. And that is very important because those conservation objectives also go in the easement document, and that is what helps to support the easement as a charitable contribution for the IRS. We will have an easement plan created, so it will clearly show you the different areas. It always has the meets and bounds. We also draft the easement and will, compromise, negotiate with the landowner, with the township if they're a party to the easement, to make sure that everyone is comfortable with the language and what is being permitted and what is not. We will also we would have to get acceptance from our board to accept the easement, because we will be taking on that obligation and responsibility to make sure that the easement is monitored in perpetuity and that those objectives are upheld. And then we coordinate settlement and everything's just happy after that. So agricultural easements, I don't have a whole lot else to say about them. They're very similar to the conservation easements that I just mentioned, except that, of course, the agricultural resources are the main purpose. And in the future, that land has to only be used for agricultural purposes. So with a conservation easement, you have those working lands. You can farm on that, but you're not required to. So, you could let your farm field grow into an open meadow if you wanted to. And then fee acquisition. So going back to the bundle of rights, it does give you the most freedom in terms of you own all of the rights. So you can, pick and choose how you would want to, just like with a township park or something like that, what you want to do with the land. Is a little less common than easements. But you gain by owning, of course, you have all the control over protection of the property and stewardship. You can provide public access for your residents. But of course, stewardship takes time and money and equipment and various other responsibilities that a township would then have to continue to keep up. So, so in some ways with conservation easements, there's not that perpetual commitment on anyone but the landowner really to maintain their property. We just check and make sure it's consistent with the easement. So I do have a few slides on funding opportunities. And it sounded like some of them will be very similar to what Matthew mentioned for trails. So I do have the DCED Greenways, Trails and Recreation Program here. So DCED is the organization that will give you up to 85% of the value. It's less, we use that program less frequently for easements. Jack and I don't deal specifically with the creation of trails and recreational spaces, but I know other colleagues in our office do. But they do also fund conservation easements. But the two that we use most are DCNR's program, which is really more for fee acquisition. So if the township wanted to purchase a property, that would be a good opportunity. It does require a 50% match, but you can find another 50% match sometimes through another grant opportunity, such as Chester County's Parks and Preservations programs. So they have a preservation partnership program that has both a natural area component and a farmland component. So depending on the characteristics of the property, you might fit better into one or the other. And the natural area preservation grant program does require public access. And so usually what that looks like is part of the conservation easement area. We most commonly will add a trail easement. And so within that easement at some point or right away or never, you could put a trail in. And that's really, it's part of the county's requirement, but in many cases it works out really nicely with the township's trail plan that you get that, you kind of get that in with the landowner that, well, you'll get this extra funding for your grant if you allow this public access. And then of course for farmland properties, you could also go through the ag board. And then there are many private foundations out there, several of which Natural Lands has a very good relationship with. And in some cases, annual funding from that you can also access for conservation easements. So when we're working with them, these are primarily the sources that we work with. So of course, I just want to mention a few of the other services the Natural Lands offers. And some is because I think earlier when we first met with the small group at the pavilion at Crossan Park to introduce ourselves, we had talked a little bit about the park system in the township, and that I think you said that you're interested in potentially better, improving the signage and some of the trail markers and things like that. So we do create trail maps. We have a great graphic design team and GIS department. I'll show you an image of some of the things that we've created before. We also do brochures about parks. We can do township branded signage designing and also fabrication. And then we do stewardship management plans. So if you have some parks that maybe need some revitalization and you're not quite sure what to do, we both do open space planning as well as stewardship management plans for those open spaces. And we have a planning department that can help look over zoning ordinances to see if there's any opportunity to build land conservation into them, such as conservation subdivisions. And so this is a brochure for Wyomissing Borough that we prepared. I think it was just late last year. And this is the trail map that went with it. And of course, you work with the township to determine what exactly you're looking for. So last slide, because we are a nonprofit, we are really grateful to our members. And if you like what you saw and you have a couple dollars burning in your pocket, we're always very appreciative for any contribution. So there's our contact information. And Jack and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you, Jack and Robin. That was great, and I'll definitely second that. Your organization is incredible. I'm already a member and a volunteer with you guys, but if anyone else doesn't know about them, I definitely recommend researching them because they do great work and great things. I did have a question as far as the easements. As far as like the land size, is it 10 acres the minimum? Is that correct?
I believe 10 acres is the minimum for the county's farmland.
Okay.
Is that right?
And
Jack?
how about?
Well, from a size standpoint, the reality is it does not matter what size the parcel is. It takes about the same amount of work. So the amount of time and effort it takes for 5 acres is the same as 10, is the same as 25, is the same as 100, or is the same as 500. So from a staff time and those kinds, it's the same amount of work. So bigger is better. 10 tends to be the minimum, mostly from a financial standpoint, because from a funding and from a financial standpoint, when you get smaller than 10, the financial value of an easement goes down. And so, we would consider something, well, the smaller the parcel, the more critical the habitat and the conservation values has to be in order for us to do an easement.
Okay.
So 10 tends to be the minimum, but doesn't have to be.
So Jack, I want to add in, we've had somewhere it was a contiguous property, and even though it was small, it was a key piece to maybe get frontage or prevent some development from happening where it wasn't a standalone property, it would never score well. But since it was contiguous and made a nice little connection, it was a good property.
Yeah, Paul's exactly right.
I have a question. Do you work with businesses? The company I work for, sometimes they like to do trade-offs where like they're developing something, but they can work with an organization to do a trade-off. Like if they wanted to develop someplace and they'll, does that make sense? They'll do a trade-off and I guess, ensure something else is kept safe. I don't know if that makes sense. Like
Well,
they're developing
the-
a property and then the county will say, yeah, but you need to trade it off someplace else.
like a transfer of development rights.
Yeah.
We do that occasionally. It's less common than straight up conservation. But yes, we've worked with developers. We hold some HOA easements. They're not our favorite thing to do. But yes, we do.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else? Any questions? All right, well, Jack and Robin, I appreciate your time. I know you guys have done a lot for us this week, and I look forward to working with you more in the future. Like I said, I'm a big fan of your organization.
So
Oh, thank you.
I do have one more before they head out, is some of the services that Robin just mentioned, like applying for the grants or the trail mapping and stuff like that. I mean, is that what do we do? Pay by the hour, or how does that work? How do you compensate for that?
We usually develop a contract. And so some of that is based on staff time. We usually provide you with, what the hourly rates are. And there are some, photocopying costs, but usually we would develop a contract with you, kind of lay out what our estimated costs would be. And, if the township agrees with that, then we'd do a contract.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one more question. This is kind of for Paul, but maybe they could help answer it. Paul, when we were in that small breakout session a couple weeks ago for the long-term plan, there were some people in my neighborhood in particular who were under the impression that their land was going to get taken away from them. Like, I know that that's wrong, but how do you defeat against that type of misinformation and combat against it? We have some neighbors who own, land, and they said that they're under the impression that, organizations like yours is stealing their land or devaluing their property. Paul might be able to speak more to it. It sounded like there was a political background to that precedes me living in this area.
So,
But obviously there's some misinformation. How do we fight against that?
well,
Maybe Paul can explain it first better.
all right. So the explanation is there's a couple, and it's actually a wide belief in this area that the land conservation and easements are a United Nations plot to move Americans into the cities so the United Nations can take over America. And I can't believe I'm saying that out loud, but
and it was bizarre when we heard it, and everybody, he believed it. Like he
believed it, right? And so, there's a lot online, and our local Tea Party group back in the last election in 2016 was very vocal about that. And so I was a supervisor, and they came in screaming about United Nations proposal number 17 or whatever it was. I don't remember. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? So that was what it was about. The United Nations is moving Americans into the cities. And so that was one issue. And then the second one is that in the 90s and early 2000s, Franklin was considering doing larger parcel zoning, where farmland right now is 2 acres. And that's kind of silly, right? How can you do farming on 2 acres? But that's our farming parcel size. And so there was a thought of making it bigger, 10 or 20 acres. But in reality, that won't stand up in court. So that doesn't, we're not going to do that. And that's what he was worried about as a taking. So if you make a farmer who has 100 acres and make it 20 acre zoning, he suddenly can only put 5 houses on where he could have put 50 houses.
Right.
And
Which doesn't make sense, because still then the lot is worth more, but.
Well, you'd think, but a developer will pay more if he can put more houses per square foot, right? So we assured him that there is no 20 acre zoning, that we decided against it because it will not hold up in court, and that we would consider that a taking. And these easements are voluntary, that's the key, and that the farmers often compensated for them, or they donated.
And if I may add, at Franklin passed an open space referendum, which is Act 153. So Franklin Township has had open space funds that they did use for acquisitions of conservation easements. Well, Act 153 specifically says that you can't condemn land to use those funds. And then as we do grant funds, the stipulation of the grant funds is absolutely voluntary. We cannot use grant funds to condemn a property.
So I think the best way to combat it is the second part of your answer, is to educate people and to show them how beneficial it is for both the community, because we get preserved land, which keeps taxes down, and the nice rural atmosphere, but also for the farmer who may be land rich but cash poor. And the only way they know how to retire is to cash in on their $2 million farm and move to Florida. So this gives them an option where they can sell the easement or the development rights, get a little bit of cash out to retire on, but still own their land. And it still stays as a farm. So it's a win-win. They don't have to sell it all.
Well,
Well,
and I
and-
think the
and it-
education will help, but
And in addition to that, the next farmer that buys the land as eased can actually afford to farm it because they're not buying the farm at development prices.
Right. Good
well,
point.
hopefully us as a board can explain this to more people, but it was kind of a strange thing to hear. And my concern was that was in the planning, we're in the midst of a long range plan with our township. And he was saying this in front of a lot of other people. Fortunately, it was in a smaller breakout group and not, to the whole public, but it is concerning that he believed that. And obviously it's not true, but it's good to know that we can refer maybe people to your organization to explain that that's not the case.
So we have some very interesting and imaginative, colorful people in Franklin Township. That's why we live out here. But just having Jack and Robin here tonight to educate you, this group, helps
Yes.
spread the word, right? So now you
Absolutely.
all hopefully have a better understanding of what an easement is and how they work. And you can explain it to someone, maybe a large landowner that you live next to.
Yes.
They could do.
Well, I can at least refer them to your website.
There you go.
Well, and along those lines, as Paul well knows, there's a dozen ways to skin a cat. And, that's Robin and my job, and to figure out how to make these things work. And we've, there's a bunch of jigging and jagging that can go along, every individual landowner and every parcel is different. And there's a unique solution every time.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for your information. And I will now know how to better explain it.
Yep.
All right, well, thanks, Jack and Robin, again. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, so next on the agenda, is Matt
Wait,
Is Matt-
Jack and Robin, you guys can drop off if you want. I mean, or you can stay, either way.
I think we're gonna I'm gonna get prepared for the debate.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you,
Thanks.
John.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
All right.
All right, so next up, is Matt Thompson on the call?
I'm here.
Hi, Matt.
I'm actually under Amy Thompson. It's probably coming up on
Oh.
another last name.
That's all right.
So,
So, yeah, so Matt, I'll just give you a quick introduction and you can take it from there. So you're with the organization, I'm gonna try to pronounce it right, Velo Ami, is that
good
correct?
job. Well done.
Okay. So, and Matt's gonna talk with us about the trail work that he's been doing, some signage, maps, and some of the other stuff with the bike trail that you're building over at Crossing.
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody's been out there to check it out. We have at this point, let's say about a 2.3 mile loop done on the Crossing Park side. And then I did get to start on a bit of trail in the Franklin Preserve side. It goes from basically like the bottom parking lot up to the gas line along the road that comes down from Parsons Road. So it's kind of at a standstill right now. Life has kind of gotten in the way. And with the hunting open up over there in the preserve, I'm trying to stay out of there while they're hunting. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if anybody has questions for me. There was, I would like to at some point, I had sent an email to Jeffrey about naming trails. If there's anybody that you want to honor in the township or anything like that, that you want to, name a trail, I could certainly come up with some names for some trails, but if anybody has any ideas, by all means, speak up. And, eventually I'd like to get some signs out there, a trail map, which is all stuff that VeloMe is willing to pay for. We can take care of that. And I'd also like to, we have donated some bike repair stands. We put one down in White Clay State Park at the paper mill parking lot. We put another one at the Whip out in Chester County. So I have 3 of them currently sitting at my shop, 2 of which are spoken for. One is kind of, if we could find a spot for it, we would put it up.
So Matt, could you say what a bike repair stand is? I've seen the one at White Clay, but most people.
Yeah, so it's basically it's a basic. It has a way to hang your bike from the seat, and if you for some reason are out riding or you show up to ride and you have a flat tire, it's got a hand or a foot pump in there to put air in your tires. And then it's got some pretty basic tools that hang from it, just, in case you need to do some quick adjustments to your bike while you're out riding.
It's got like some wrenches and some screwdrivers, wrenches, stuff like that.
Yep. It's a Phillips head screwdriver, just basic stuff that could kind of, you're not going to completely build a bike out of it, but it would get you probably moving. So we're, one of the other stands is slated to go at the parking lot for that Mason-Dixon trail there on
Elbow Lane?
No, Flint Hill Road. Yeah, gravel lot there.
So I like them. They're pretty heavy duty looking, like they're very professional looking, where the tools are fastened really well with cables so that they can't be stolen. But if we agree to get it in the park, we'd be crazy not to, but we do worry about vandalism in the lower end of the park.
Yeah.
Where we see teenagers hanging out, and I would just be afraid they want to pick on it. So if you do put it in the park, I would suggest try to put it up maybe by the bathrooms or in the middle of the park where it's less likely they can beat on it and not be seen,
Yep. Makes sense. Now we would also if all goes well, I foresee myself being in that park for a long time to come. So if I show up, we've already had to fix the one down at White Clay because of vandalism, I would assume. So we just kind of fix it, we'll take responsibility for it. And if anybody sees it, if one of you are in there and see it broken, by all means, you could say, hey, go get it fixed. So
are you offering to do that with the repair stand? Because we should maybe vote on that, or do you all understand what it is? Do we need a picture, or you understand enough to vote on it?
I've definitely, I think I've seen the one in White Clay, so I'm familiar. I don't know about anybody else.
I've seen them.
The footprint of this thing, the base of it is probably 18 inches by 18 inches. And it stands about, I don't know, 5-6 feet tall at the most. So it takes a very minimum space. You could put it off to the side somewhere so it's out of the way.
But what do you need to install? Like, do you need us to have a pad of concrete, or you're going to pour your own pad, or how does it work? Or is it metal?
So the one at White Clay, we just mounted into their existing concrete pad. So if there was a spot that you thought would work, then we could mount it into that. If not, then we would pour a pad. And so the one going at the Mason-Dixon trail, we need to pour a pad for it and then mount it to that. So either way, we can do it either way.
Jeff, is there a spot to do it near the restrooms at Crossing Park that wouldn't be in the way, obviously, of the bathroom doors, but maybe in front of the maps for the sign where the map's gonna go.
I'm sorry, what was the last part again? We're in front of the bulletin board?
Yeah, is there someplace near the bulletin board maybe that we could probably put this so they wouldn't have to have the expense of another cement pad?
The only thing that I could think of would be right in between the two gardens there. There is an asphalt area right in front of the building there.
So,
So that could possibly be used.
so maybe Matt, you check out where you think is best, right? I know at the lower end, there's a bench that's on a concrete pad and it would fit next to that, but that's pretty isolated. So it's right next to the trails, which is great, but it's isolated.
So the other spot maybe is that there's that parking lot about midway down the hill. There's a parking area there. I've actually,
Sure.
when I've been in the park, I've actually seen a lot of people parking there to then go out and do rides. A lot of them are doing, so part of Velo and me, we put on a gravel ride out of Paradox Vineyard. We didn't do it this year for obvious reasons. But so a couple times I've been there, there's been people parking at that mid-hill lot to go out and actually do our gravel ride, which is kind of cool. But so maybe that's a spot too in that mid area. But
Yeah, I was going to say, Mr. Thompson, do you think there would be a spot there on that concrete pad where we have the mulch and where you wanted to put that stone?
possibly, I mean, as long as it's not in the way affecting what your guys are using that for. I mean, if I could mount it to an existing concrete slab, it's obviously going to be easier in the long run. But I mean, this is nothing that needs to be decided like we're doing it this way tonight. Obviously, I mean, I could go out there and look around and give you a couple different ideas, and then we could all decide from that.
Sure.
I'm
And
pretty,
I'm just throwing that out. And if
Yep.
you want me to meet you out there someday, I'm more than happy to do it. I appreciate your help.
yep,
The only, just like you said, you don't want to make it in the way of like the crew that has to load.
Yep.
mulch. And then
Yep.
up at the bathrooms, you don't want to block a sidewalk because we have to have ADA access in that area.
yep. Yeah,
Yep.
they have to be somewhere out of the way. So yeah, I mean, I'll look around out there and come up with a couple ideas, and
The only thing I would add is when we're getting signs for Crossland Park, then maybe we should at some point add a sign saying closer to where you have the trail saying where this is. So maybe that would be something that
Yep.
we'll need to add later to let people know where this is if people don't pass it as
well, the other thought would be too, is if you are going to have some sort of trail signage, does then the bike repair station want to go next to that? So that's something else.
And that was the only thing I was saying is our main sign. I think we had talked about putting a map in front of the restrooms.
Yep. Okay. So as long as it's somewhere in that vicinity. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So other than that, I don't know if anybody has questions for me.
Well, what's the rest of your proposal, Matt? Is you guys want to do signs, or you just want to feel us out for doing signs for the trails, or what?
Well, I think eventually we need to do some sort of signage out there. I guess in my mind, I envision some of those lower trails that are down along the river that are always perpetually wet. To me, they need to just go away personally, and just stop mowing them, keep people out of there, and just start using the trails that I'm putting in, because I'm trying to stay out of the wet areas. I don't know how people feel about that, but anyway, once we have a loop kind of established, then yeah, we could come in and put some signs up, and just so people would know where to go and how to get around.
So as far as the lower area, we've had some scouts do some boardwalks down there, and I'd hate to just toss that away because they put some.
Yeah.
So I would like to salvage some of those trails as a project to improve on them, maybe bring in gravel and more elevated areas like the scouts did. So I don't want to abandon all of them, but I agree a lot of them need to be rerouted or repaired or abandoned, right?
Yep.
So, on any map, we should agree on the final layout of what we're going to keep and what we're not. But
Right.
I think maybe the path forward is you have a map drawn up, whether it's by hand or Mary here can do GIS, and you heard Natural Lands can do GIS work to make nice, pretty maps. You know, you could draw it up on Google Maps with a magic marker, and then we could take it from there.
Yep.
I don't have any opinion on naming trails, but my suggestion is the trail signage should be very simplistic, like a color coded, and then the color on the map. So if you're on the orange trail, you see an orange line, and when you're out in the field, you see an orange marker, something simple.
Yep.
And if you want to name it, you know, Matt's Orange Trail, I don't care, but we should have color coding on the maps. I found that works best in white clay, and that's what we did in Banffshire as well.
Yep.
That would be my only request on the color coding. And the markers should be something more permanent. They did paper stickers on plastic discs in white clay, and they didn't last very long at all. And then they just did solid plastic, and that seems to last a little bit better.
So I think, so David Bartu is willing to help us with the signage, and he's gone to those kind of brown plastic.
Yep.
I think I would just utilize something like that.
That's what we used, and we actually routed out a post and sunk them in to prevent vandalism, because they were getting picked off. So by sinking them into the post, it was much harder to vandalize.
Yep. Yep.
So no, I think that'd be great. You know, you seem to be really excited about doing the trails, and you're keeping up with it, and we're not. So I'd accept your help with doing the trail map and trail signage.
Okay. And again, David Bartu would actually, he would come out and help plot he could make a trail map for us, basically.
Okay, yeah.
So.
Paul, why we have Paul Lagasse on here, is it possible that he knows of some historic names or names from the township that might be good for, for the names of the trails? Something for the future.
We can talk about that.
You're so patient to listen to all these meetings that I thought maybe you might be able to
I actually have something to mention later. So we can certainly talk about that. But I think it's also important to remember that sometimes you may really want to honor a contemporary individual if you're going to do that, who may have contributed something. So you don't necessarily need to focus on historic personages. But yeah, you know, when the time comes, I'd be happy to work with someone.
How about Ben Franklin Way? There we go. Isn't he our namesake?
We're getting ahead of ourselves, I think.
I just feel bad. Paul's so patient that he could contribute the names. But I think, Matt, any of it's...
You're going to make me talk, is that it? That's
and I don't know if Matt knows that Paul works with the historic.
Oh, okay.
So we had a canceled meeting last night, and most people were notified, but I had to launch the meeting just so I could tell anybody who showed up to go away.
Thank you for your patience.
Matt, has anyone plotted the trails at all with the GPS? Like, is there already a trail, like, shapefile existing?
Yes. Maybe Jeff could speak up, but we have a trail map. The one that's posted was a GIS effort.
I mean the bike trail.
The new trail.
The new ones, I don't know.
There's nothing. So when we originally came to the township meeting, it was a rough idea of what we wanted to do, considering elevation and that sort of stuff. So it gets tweaked a little bit as you go in there. So there's not a defined trail map at this point.
Oh, I had an idea about something, and Greg and the rest of the group. The townships employed robotics to do a survey of the township roads, which I actually had to drive around and do. But we do have that option for trails too. If someone wanted to mount a cell phone on their mountain bike or walk them, it would GPS it and then take photos about every 10 to 15 feet. So then we can do comparisons year over year of what may or may not need to be repaired. It's just an idea.
Okay.
Well, I know that's good for the roads because they wear out, but I wouldn't, I don't know. I wouldn't want to spend any money on it. If you're saying we have a contract and we have more time we can use for it, then I would be interested, but I wouldn't want to spend park money on that.
Okay,
I'll be in there. I'll look around.
Yeah. Well, Matt,
I'll just keep riding around in circles.
yeah. I mean, trails can change week to week with the weather and the rain and the, use and growth.
I just wanted to throw that out because it was an option that we were given by them. So again, just wanted to make you aware of it.
Yeah, all right, thank you. So we need to give Matt a thumbs up or thumbs down here. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept Matt's proposal to install the bike repair station.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All right, everybody in favor? Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Okay, so Matt, well, since there's no cost involved, I think we can make that decision, but on Wednesday of next week, I think it is, or the week after, I'll notify the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. Yeah, and just let me know. I mean, at this point, like I said, I'm still pretty busy with work, so it might be this winter before I would even get to it. So, yeah.
Yeah,
And
we
then
still
we can-
have to confirm the location though.
Yes, we'd have to figure out exactly where we're going to put it for sure. Yep.
Great. Well, we appreciate your help, Matt.
Yeah, and then for the trails, Matt, why don't you maybe decide what to do with starting off with a map of the trails, and then, if you want to color them and name them and whatever, and then maybe bring it back to us and see what you've got. And then before anything happens in the field, no.
Yeah. I wouldn't put it, to me, I'd almost rather have the whole loop completed in the preserve before a map was even created, quite honestly. So,
Right.
So we don't have to go back and do it a second time.
So I want to remind you, we have a Boy Scout project or Eagle Scout project to do a bridge over in Franklin. So I do need to walk out there with you and
Yep.
your opinion on that.
Yep.
We gave the Scout like a range of, I don't remember, 100 feet or something along the creek where it looks like the best potential, where the banks are high and he can span it without any supports. And it looked like it was least exposure to washout or something.
Yeah, it's tough down at that bottom part though, because it's really got a bunch of twists and turns to it. So that's going to be a tricky area down there.
It was like at the lower parking lot, we walked due west.
Yep.
Right to the stream.
Yep. Yeah.
So we weren't down in the low area.
Yep. Yeah, we need to stay up out of there anyway. But yeah, no, let's try and find a time to meet out there and kind of see what and where. So.
All right.
All right.
Anything else? All right, well,
One more thing. So we actually did apply for one of those PICO grants that they were talking about earlier. And we actually, Velo and me was awarded a grant of $1,000, which we will ultimately probably use at the park. There's, I guess, on the east side of Crossing, is that the east or south side? Kind of below the you got the cell phone tower in there, and then down below, there's a really wet area in there before you would go down towards the stream. And I want to put in 2 boardwalks there to span those 2 wet areas. So some of that PICO money would end up going to that. So,
well, that's great.
So anyway,
some of that area there you're talking about below the cell phone tower is so steep that might be a good candidate for rerouting to try to maybe do some switchbacks. And
I've thought about that because that trail comes straight down from the parking area up there. I'd like to kind of do some switchbacks down to just to get rid of that access road there.
Yeah.
That wet area is kind of down at the bottom there before you cross that existing bridge. There's 2 really notoriously wet areas there that I'd like to put a boardwalk across.
because I know we need some access for vehicles, but that's so steep, there's no way you can bike up it. It's just not friendly for walking or biking.
Yeah, it's not good. So that would be something that to encourage people to park up top there and then come down,
Right.
kind of switch back down to it. So that is.
Has anybody, we mentioned the Boy Scout boardwalks, and you know, they washed out in the big storm in August, that hurricane we had. They're all gone. And so Jim's group picked them all up and stacked them. But last I heard, they were still stacked. And the Boy Scout who installed them, his father came out and he was going to look at getting the troop to relay them, put them back out and fasten them better. They weren't fastened very well. But has anybody checked the big bridge? I had just thinking while you were mentioning it, I have not seen the big bridge since the big storm. Does anybody know if it's still in place?
It's still there.
Okay.
The one that I put the ramp on.
Yes.
Yeah, it's still there, but I will tell you, if we get 2 more big storms, it will not be there anymore. Because it'll be on an island. Like that ramp is going to be an island at some point, because that bank keeps getting hammered. I almost need to get in there and pull some of that rock from in the bed over to the side.
Yeah, and that's, you know, I was just thinking with Jeff on the phone, maybe it's something we should look at, with just bring a backhoe in for half a day and move some rock over to block the bridge. Otherwise, we might lose the whole bridge.
You're going to lose it. I have a backhoe, so I could bring it in.
Oh, there you go. Look at this guy.
I got everything, man.
All right. Well,
Actually, it's my father-in-law's backhoe, and my wife's walking away because she don't want to have to ask him. But no, seriously, I mean, I could do the work with his backhoe, and all the stone is there. It's just a matter of picking it and putting it on that and just shoring up that,
right.
Basically rechanneling that stream bed.
Right.
So it doesn't hit there how it
If
is.
it's not too much of a burden, it would be nice if you'd be willing to do it, Mr. Thompson.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You start playing with stream beds, then you start playing with EPA. A lot of gray area there.
No, yeah, right. So this is, he has to stay outside the channel. So Matt, you can't be digging in the water, but I don't know if you've been down there lately, Jim, but the channel has made many tracks. And so it's just a big mess down there of open rock and dirt and roots everywhere.
Been down to the bridge in a while, so
Yeah, it doesn't look good.
I'm sure with the way the water's been flowing.
Yeah, from what I heard, that last storm, it really came ripping through there.
Yeah.
So,
Paul, are you talking about the big metal bridge, the
No, it's a big wooden bridge.
wood bridge? Okay.
closer up towards Schmidt's Tree Farm, kind of right behind Schmidt's Tree Farm. It's a very substantial bridge, so it'd be a shame to lose it.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Okay. Well, thanks for all your work on the trails, Matt. It's been helpful. And we need some help in Banffshire where a tree uprooted and took out the whole trail, and it makes it very difficult to walk on.
Yep.
You have the machine that can cut with a 6-way blade that can cut a trail on a hillside.
I don't, but so I rented one for use in crossing, so I can certainly rent one again.
Well, how much is a rental?
I forget what we got that for a day. I want to say it was.
Because we need to put together a budget for next year, and this might be a budget item where we look at renting that 1 or 2 weekends a year just to do trail upkeep.
So I'm pretty sure I got it on a weekend, which weekend rentals are typically a little cheaper. And I want to say I paid like $700 to have it for the weekend. Maybe not even that much.
Okay.
I could look it up and get back. I got it from Gap Power up in Gap. So they were about the most reasonably priced. So.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be good information because we need to have that for just like I said, when trails wash out or tree roots.
They're great little machines. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Sure. No
Thanks,
problem.
Matt.
Hopefully you guys are getting out and enjoying those trails. So maybe I'll see you out there.
Yes.
All right.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
All right. Take care.
See ya.
All right. So next up is some of the old business that been working on. We already kind of went over the PICO grant stuff. I know, and Jeff mentioned that deadline is coming up. It's at the end of the month. So I don't know, where we want to go from there, but if we want to figure out what project we'd like to apply and maybe work with Matthew Brown, or what do you guys think as far as that goes?
I
What
think
was
that's
that?
key, do we have a project that we need a grant for right now? Other than the healing garden?
Well, I know Paul has the bridge you were working on. Would that be something?
Yeah, I think that'd be a great candidate. I think it's, it's under $10,000 and it's ready to go. So I think that would score very well.
Okay.
But as I said last month, though, I'm not much of a grant writer. So with this guy, Matthew, if he's willing to apply and put his fee in, I think that's a good deal for us. Unless anybody else wants to volunteer to write the grant. Jeff checked on our old grant writer, our former grant writer. I didn't mean to imply he's old, but he's not up for it. He's not able to do it.
Right. So yeah, I mean, should we take a vote on that, or?
Yeah, and
Possible free money, that's a good thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it would impress the Board of Supervisors that, to minimize our cost and our budget. But this is a tight spot here. I mean, I guess we can't, if we hire this guy, we're not obligating the township to any money. So maybe we can do that without getting board approval first. Or maybe we pass it by Joan, township manager.
Yeah, I mean, you would have definitely more experience with that.
You asked that, Jeff?
The only thing I'd worry about is matching funds. Matching funds create a township obligation.
Yeah, does anybody know if the PICO grant requires matching funds?
Well, the thing is, the township already issued some funds for that project, so we could utilize that potentially as the match if it's,
Jim, that's a great point. Yeah, the township already approved the full amount of the bridge. So if we can get half of it paid for, then we're just reducing their liability, not increasing it. Okay.
All right. So, I mean, do we need to do anything else on that one?
Well, does anybody have any other project? I don't want to speak for everybody, but
this point of the year, no.
Yeah, and I think with the healing gardens, we're still kind of putting that together. So I don't think we're ready to pull the trigger on looking for funds there.
I just wanted to say, under the time constraints, Paul had already done so much work on the bridge that it seems like a lot of the groundwork has already been done. So it's a good project to use because we don't have that much time and then maybe it would even cost less than for Matthew to do because Paul could give him a lot of the information already.
yeah, so Eli, can you send me Matthew's information?
Certainly, I'll forward that.
Maybe it'll impress Matthew too that Paul's already so prepared that it makes writing grants for us that much easier.
Yeah. Right.
So should we, can you just propose it and we just second it? I agree. I don't know that we have to bring it to the board if it's trying to get them back half their money.
Well, yeah, all right. So I'll propose that we use Matthew Brown to write a grant to apply for the PICO Green Region grant for the Banffshire Bridge project.
And I'll second it.
Any discussion? So all in favor? Aye.
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 No opposition? Jim, did you aye?
Aye.
I don't have your video, so I can't see if you're.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I think like I said, it's a win-win for the township if we can get some money and put some back in their pocket.
All right, so I'll talk to Matthew and I'll just pass this by Joan to make sure it's acceptable. That I'm not getting us in any trouble.
Okay, cool.
All right.
All right. So next
Jeff,
up was,
wait, I want to ask Jeff. Jeff, do you have any
Okay.
ideas on the Pico? Are you okay with that, Jeff?
Yes, I'm great with it. And from what I'm told from the insiders within Pico, that would score well, that project.
Okay, good.
nice.
And with the information I sent you, Greg, Matthew will have a contact within the conservation district he can reach out to if he's got any questions.
Okay. Cool. All right, should we move on?
Yep.
All right, so the sign, the Crossing Park sign that we've been working on. So Jeff, I know you put together some quotes on those. Let's see if I can even pull them up. Did you send those to everyone, or did everyone get that, or no?
I did send it to everyone. It was
Okay.
about 12:30 this afternoon.
So, and I just wanted to add that I did speak with the London Britain Township Roadmaster. His name's Joe Ferguson. And he was a super nice guy, and he had no problem with us putting a sign on the Broad Run, over Broad Run in Parsons.
Good Hope.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I keep calling it, yeah, Good Hope. But yeah, so he's cool with that. I didn't know if, we needed anything else from them, but they were good to go with that.
Jeff?
Yeah, we work very well with London Britain, so that'd be easy.
Nice. Okay.
But Jeff, what you want to make comment on the 896 side? You did some work there.
I reached out to PennDOT's main sign guy. His name is Don Senafani. And his first recommendation is if we do a sign, it would be a lot easier and less time consuming for us if we place the sign outside of the PennDOT right of way. If we must have it within the PennDOT right of way, there's a lot of paperwork involved, which is no problem to do, but it's just going to be time consuming. It's not going to be an easy thing, as he has stated to me. But he said if we can do it outside of the right of way and just get the homeowner or landowner's permission, that would be fine. Now, the right of way is generally where you see the telephone poles along the edge of the road.
And it's, so Jeff, it's 33 feet. So that's 16 and a half feet from the center line.
Yes, sir. Correct, sir.
And so I was looking at it this afternoon, and I think on the southbound lanes that it would be possible to do that. It doesn't look like it's anybody's front yard. It's kind of a, unkept lot with a fence a little further in. But on the northbound side, there's those trees there, a hedgerow that would make it difficult because the sign would be up in the trees. And then if we went further south to get out of the trees, there's a bunch of signs there that says like end school zone and I think a speed limit sign. And I think there'd just be too many signs in one spot unless we could share a post with them, but that doesn't sound like it's allowed. So I think it needs someone to go out and do a physical measurement of what 16 and a half feet is and see if it's possible. Otherwise, we just do the paperwork and get it put in the right of way. That's my thought on it. So Jeff, I did not read your proposal. What is the cost of a sign?
$33 for the sign, somewhere in there, for a one-sided sign.
For a 24 by 9-inch sign, $32.45. For an 18x6 sign, $27.45.
Are you serious? That's it? What are they made out of paper?
No, it's metal and it has a proper reflectivity. And if we would want it double-sided, we would take each of those prices and multiply it by 1.7.
I don't think we need double side because we're going to hang it on a single post, but
Nope, just wanted to get the price.
what size font is 24 inches?
It looks like a 3-inch text. It's 9-inch high by 24 inches wide.
So I know this sounds silly, but I think it needs bigger text. And the only way for me to know for sure is maybe go measure some text that's out on 896 and see if it's, comparable. Because there's,
I'm sorry. Can you
those
get
are
a
very
larger
reasonable.
font on the same size?
What's that, Mary?
Can you get a larger font on the same size sign?
Probably not. We probably have to go bigger.
Normally, street signs are 6-inch text. Street name signs,
Really?
yes.
I think we need bigger then, right? Because the street sign isn't huge.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree.
Now, some of those, and please just take it as a general estimate, but for a standard street name sign, double-sided, unless it's a huge name, is right around $50 to $60.
Well, anyway, I'm really pleased with the price. I thought he was going to be over $100. So I think making it a little bigger is worth the money.
And it's definitely cheaper than the signs that I had found that if we bought on our own. So
What were they? How much? Do you remember?
it was like $57 for that one that I had showed. It was about the 6x9. And I put in everything like UV protection, reflectivity, all that stuff. But I'm sure Jeff knows more what we need. So
Yes, that takes care of the proper reflectivity, and that's not a problem.
Yeah.
So if we want to try the 6-inch text, I can certainly get a price for that. It will be more expensive, but I can get a price for that.
So I don't want to make the sign so long though that it requires 2 poles, right? I'm trying to keep it simple.
Not to jump ahead, but is it possible, because there is a Board of Supervisors meeting next week, that Greg, you could ask for, $500? It would be obviously less than that, but then if we get the money ahead of time and then they're able to get the sign, it's like, I just feel bad having to wait another month until the next Board of Supervisors meeting. Is that something that has been done before, Paul? That you could ask for the money and then,
There should be money in the Parks Fund that already.
Yeah, for such an small amount, Joan might be able to authorize it, but I wouldn't go to the board meeting without a mock-up. They would want to see a mock-up.
is that something you could do by next week, Jeff? Maybe give Greg like a mock-up and then he could ask for X amount of dollars, hoping that it'll cost less, but then we don't have to wait a whole nother month or,
No, that's fine. As long as I sent the mock-up to you, if you can tell me if you like whichever one, but if you want 6-inch text, 4-inch text.
You want to share your screen?
I'm actually on my home one, Paul. I don't have it.
Okay.
But that was an attachment I sent to everyone this afternoon. I apologize for not sending it to my home one.
Is it possible that I can make a motion that we can leave it up to Greg and Paul to decide how big the sign is?
I was
Wait,
gonna say,
can I?
I was going to say leave it to Jeff. He's the road guy.
Yeah, but I'm saying with Jeff working with you and Greg, come up with whatever would work. Then next Board of Supervisors meeting, say, this is what it's going to look like. We'll obviously get it approved, but under this amount of, dollar amount.
Perfect.
Kyle was trying to say something. Kyle, were you?
Yeah, I was out driving around today looking at signs as I was driving around, and is it one about the size of a street sign? And that's too small.
Yeah, we're trying
And-
to make it bigger than that.
Yeah, but the other one might be, you know how you see welcome to Borough West Grove or welcome to Franklin Township or what? I think that's the size of the other one. Isn't it, Jeff?
Like the welcome to Franklin Township
Yeah.
sign.
Yeah, is that the second size?
That will be larger than the 9 by 24, but if that's the goal we want to meet, that's easy. So I just need to be told that.
I have the mock-up up if I can share my screen. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only other comment I was gonna make is, did we discuss making it brown? Because
Yeah,
I believe,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the last time we had talked, it was going to be brown. I'm personally biased to it, the shape of an arrow, because I think that makes you able to make the font bigger, but I'm not sure.
Greg, it doesn't matter if it's brown on white or green on white, same cost.
okay,
This is just for mock-up purposes.
gotcha, okay.
What was your comment about the arrow?
I like the one to the left of the side of the screen. See how it is actually in the shape of an arrow as opposed to having an arrow on a rectangle. But
Yeah, I like
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, and I like one on top of the other because then it makes it, instead of a long skinny sign that needs 2 poles to support, we could try to fit it on 1 post.
Yeah.
But we'll see what the maximum is we can fit on 1 post. Jeff, can a 24-inch wide sign go on 1 post? That's
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's like
Yes.
a common stop sign, right? Okay.
Now, would the one on Good Hope, would that be a 2-sided sign?
Oh, you have a good point.
when I looked it up, I don't know if Jeff found out different. They didn't, they recommend it doing, if you do the arrow, you have to do, 2 different signs, just the arrows facing the opposite ways, but.
Correct. If you're gonna have the cutout, correct.
Gotcha.
Wait, I don't understand that. Why can't we put it on the other side with the arrow?
I'm not sure why they just said it had to be 2 separate signs. I don't know why.
If you're actually gonna have the cutout of the arrow, it has to be 2 separate signs. If it's painted on, it can be 1 sign.
I think it's the way they only print on one
I
side
think-
of the signs because of the way the finish is.
Now I'm doubting myself.
Well, if we have a sign that could be mounted on top of a post instead of on a post, if it can be mounted on top, we can do a double-sided. But if it gets too big, it's just up there as a sail, it's just going to bend over with no support, right? Not being on the post. So I think the answer will be if it gets too big and needs to be on a post, we'll have to have 2 signs. If it's small enough we can mount on top of a post like a street sign, we can do it double-sided.
Understood, sir.
All right. All right.
All right, so we good there?
Yeah.
Anything? Okay. All
Did we
right, let's
spell,
move on.
you spell crossing right?
All right. So the healing gardens, I sent that information that I got from Eric Irvin. He's the professor at University of Delaware. I don't know if anyone went through that, but he's good to go. Like he said, it'll be a trial garden. So it would be he described it as no cost to us. This is just the planting part of it. So we would still need to worry about the boards in there and the, replacing those out. But he's good to go. I told him I wanted to make sure everyone would be cool with that before I gave him the go ahead, but if we give him the approval, he said next May 1st would be when the plants would be ready for installation.
So I like this proposal. I read the whole PowerPoint slide and I thought I had it open. I just wanted to point out though, when the plants are very young, I can't tell weeds from plants. They look really similar to weeds. So
Weeds are plants.
yeah, I wouldn't want our landscapers to rip out his plants thinking they're weeds. So would he be doing any maintenance at all, like as part of the study, or does he want us to do the weeding? Because there, of course, will be weeds, right?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't.
Weed seeds.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a sod system, so he's he's bringing the whole thing in together.
Yep.
But I mean, of course, weeds will make their way in there. We didn't discuss as far as weeding in the future after that, but I assume that if it's a trial garden, he's going to want to kind of keep his eye on it. He's not going to just install it and be done with it.
Right. So I just want to get a clarification, because we don't want to be in there messing with his experiment.
Right.
And then cause a problem with it where we either weed it or spray it with something or whatever.
Yeah. No, I mean, the idea is that it's going to be low maintenance, where it's filled in with grasses and the flowers, where there's basically no room for weeds. So ideally the weeds, it's going to be a minimal issue.
Weeds will find their way.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's
so look here at the, can you guys see my screen? So to me, this looks like a weed right here and back in here. Actually, it looks like lettuce, but it looks like and yeah, I mean, it's stuff here. It looks like a weed, and for here, for sure, these look like weeds. I'm going to pull that, and this looks beautiful, but for the month it's blooming is great, but then this stuff. So we need to have an agreement with him who's going to do the maintenance. That's what I'm getting at. I don't want to interfere with his study. And if he expects us to do the maintenance, he's got to come educate our contractor, or if you're going to have volunteers do it, right? So we have to talk about that.
Absolutely.
What's that, Jeff?
No, I said absolutely about the education, and if he could do it as part of the trial study or volunteers, that would certainly help with the park budget, and then we could just let the guys do the mowing.
Yeah, because when we bring this to the board, that's their first question. Well, what's the maintenance cost? The upfront cost is nothing, which is awesome, but what's the maintenance cost?
Right.
So
the question is, what do we expect to see from a weed infiltration standpoint, with this process?
But we are hopefully going to have the money from that possible endowment.
Right. That'll help with the
maintenance.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
I do agree that it would be hard to tell. I have a garden similar to that where I laid out wildflower fabric, and it's very hard to tell. And weeds did get in, I'm assuming, because something else choked out a lot of the flowers. So I would think he would want to monitor it, because whatever I bought online, is mostly weeds.
Yeah, I think this whole study is basically to keep weeds out and to make it, an easy planting that is successful and not overtaken by weeds. So I'm sure he's going to want to monitor it. I mean, it's for people that, need to be educated, whether it's the maintenance crew or whatever. I would just the rule I go by is, if I don't know what it is, I don't pull it until I identify what it is. But I know,
Or it chokes everything else out. And the only other question I have, Greg, is how long does this last? Is this something that seeds itself and comes back every year?
Right. Yeah, it's going to be a perennial. So it's, as they grow, they'll kind of close in the soil, which will, suppress weeds even more, because there's, no sun getting to the soil. So the goal is to have these kind of fill in where they're perennial and they come back every year and they just need, you know, a trimming at basically at, you know, at the right time.
And I guess the only thing I would say is that some of the stuff that I have that are perennials sometimes don't come back because they get damaged so bad,
Right.
possibly by frost or something, especially with it being surrounded by cement.
Right.
That are these hardy enough that you know, I guess what would be our plan if they got damaged and didn't come back?
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Yeah, I'm thinking this is let's take this as a 1-year garden, and I think we should be happy if it comes back, right? No, really. 'Cause
well, I
Actually,
would be surprised if it did not come back.
right,
see,
right.
I have a different question. How soon is this supposed to bloom? A lot of these perennials, I have experience with some of them. You're not looking at a first-year garden in these pictures. In my
Yeah, so the actual pictures of the flowers aren't necessarily the exact species that he's going to be installing.
right.
So, because he's, you know, the healing garden is more, it's surrounded by shrubs and, you know, some small trees. So he's going to kind of make it more guided towards plants that will take some of the shade. So,
Right. This is for, yeah.
So Paul, this is 4 weeks because it's a sod.
Right.
And then 6 weeks, right?
Right.
So it doesn't say, it just says early successional species takeover.
Right. Right.
I assume it's the same year, but maybe not. But we're
It really depends upon, so it's a sod. It depends upon, like, if they're perennials and they're going in and they've been grown for a year to make the sod, then yes, you could sort of look like what some of these pictures have the first year. But
well,
this is, but you know, like in this picture, I assume that's either dwarf Joe Pye weed or it hasn't had its vitamins yet, because it should not be the same size as Echinacea, the purple coneflower and the black-eyed Susan. It should tower over them.
yeah, they do make dwarf versions, different sizes.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. And
so, but Paul, I mean, I appreciate that it might not bloom and look great the first year, but have you seen the garden this year, right?
yeah, I was out there when you were.
Yeah, so
I understand what, but if it doesn't, you know, no, all I'm saying is that to me, what I'm seeing in pictures like these are a mature garden.
Yeah.
I would not expect to see this the first year. So when you say you're looking at this as a 1-year thing, you're really not gonna, it's gonna be with a perennial, even with dieback, which you will get, depending upon what plants are growing. You expect to get 2 to 3 years out of most plants at a minimum.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm trying to keep my expectations low, and that we don't
The year's too low though. You need a figure 2 years.
Okay, but my point is we don't lose any money, right? It's coming in for free. We have nothing to lose. If we don't get anything out of it next year, then we start from scratch and we get the next professor or whatever. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. I guess if we're taking the $2,500, are we?
Well,
I guess maybe Eli could ask Matthew that or whenever you communicate with the foundation, if we do accept the $2,500, that let them know that we are trying. Maybe they were under the impression that we're going to be like, you know, plants that were already well established, but maybe explain to them that we're also using this trial garden.
yeah. So I have 2 thoughts on that. Is I plan to ask him if we could use the $2,500 for some of the hardscaping, like the wood or stone replacements and things like that. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of more permanent. So he might like that better because it's more permanent. But also asking your professor if mixed in with this low-lying stuff, if he could prescribe that we could plant some bushes or trees to, you know, go with it. So you have a multi-tier landscape, right? Not everything's
right.
Flat 12 inches high.
Yeah, because it's the way it's laid out, it's kind of like 2, I don't know if they're hexagons, but they're basically next to each other. And then there's a little center area. And you know, at least put, you know, 2 shrubs or something right in the middle of those
Right,
two.
right.
That's,
So,
yeah, I was thinking that as well.
so I guess that was Jennifer that asked that. We could buy those more permanent or bigger bushes, shrubs, trees with the 2,500 and complement the professor's lower stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the only other thing I would ask is, if we use the endowment, is it possible that we need to just check with them? I'm assuming the University of Delaware may want to have some signage also.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He didn't mention any
Okay.
signage.
No, I actually would like signage from University just
Yeah,
to
I mean, I
make
think it would be interesting.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
so just to make sure that the endowment's okay, that we're also including other signage.
Yeah. Okay. And
Yeah.
I was thinking for something to represent a memorial to a person, I always like to think of something more permanent, like put the plaque in front of a newly planted oak tree or something, you know, something more permanent like that to memorialize it rather than perennials or annuals or something.
Yeah, he seemed like they wanted to do a garden now. I mean, that's what I got from him.
Yeah, absolutely. And the plaque would say this garden dedicated to, but you know, stick it in front of a big tree. I don't know.
But yeah, I agree.
Okay.
And then, Greg, did you have a plan for the boxes, the raised planters boxes?
Not really. I mean, they've come out to the site. But I mean, you know, maybe we could look into doing something with that too, with the grant, because yeah, this system, you know, isn't really made for a planter.
And then they have obviously looked at it and know, I mean, when I first put our wildflowers in, it needed a lot of water. So I guess that if it's sod, did they realize they'd have to bring water in?
Yeah, we talked about running a hose from the, you know, from that connection at where the bathrooms are.
Okay.
I think we discussed that before.
So for Kyle, if you could capture, I think the 2 questions are for the professor. Who does he expect to maintain the gardens after he plants it? And if it's us, he needs to train us. But then if it is us, we need to work on either volunteers or a budget so that we can get approval from the board to get a budget for doing the maintenance of this garden. And it would be offset by the 750, but it's still, we need to know what those numbers are. Because if Jimmy's people bill at, I don't know what they bill at, but if it's $40 an hour, you know, $750 isn't going to last very long.
Right. All right. So, I mean, I kind of left this guy in the open. I didn't want to tell him to start growing the plants without talking to you guys. So for the professor, you have to ask him who's going to maintain it. And then can he tell us what other bushes or plants that we can add to the garden? Like, can he give us a garden layout? Is that something he'd be willing to do? You know what I mean? Like which parts of the garden does he want to plant? Like Jennifer just brought up, what do we do with the planters? You know, right, yeah.
And because I want him to say, no, I've got a plan for the planters, or him to say, I don't want this planters, you guys figure that out. And then in the center, could we put in a bush or a small tree? So I think what we need is a total layout of what's expected.
The good thing, bad thing right now is it's an open canvas for us there. And we do have the 6x6s, I think they were, at Dave Gerstenheimer's house that he's going to donate for replacement. But just because the pattern is the way it is now doesn't mean that pattern on the ground with the timbers has to remain that way.
Right.
You know, I guess, like I said, the other question is, what is the best layout for this system, for this, you know, sod system to install there?
Yeah, I would say if he puts them in those hexagon areas, and to Paul's thing, we just are told not to touch those areas, and then we do some other landscaping in other areas, and that could be maintained, until that these establish.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, maybe limit them to certain areas so we know those are the spots. I wouldn't necessarily mix this in with a bush, but like put the bushes in places we'll know that's where we can weed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So which areas does he want? I guess is the question, Greg.
so kind of the layout and
Yeah.
which areas does he want?
And when can we buy this for ourselves?
Yeah, right.
I have a lot of space that I would like to get rid of some lawn.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how this process works. All right, so I'll reach out back to them and forward these questions along, and then I guess we'll go from there on it.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm excited about it. I think you came up with a great solution to fixing up that garden. We do need to do the hardscaping, and we have to have a plan for that before he plants. And maybe check with him just to make sure we can reuse pressure treated timbers next to his plants. I don't know if that's a bad thing, but I would think from a realism perspective, people use pressure treated timbers in their flower gardens all the time. So I hope he wouldn't have a problem with that.
Right, okay.
Right. I know we shouldn't use them in vegetable gardens, but people have them in flower gardens a lot. Or your flower garden is next to your pressure treated deck and that's dripping on it too.
Right.
And then as far as the timbers, I've seen them at Dave's house. They're pretty, they've been around a while. So we might go check them out, because the last thing I want to do is put a half rotted timber in the ground and waste our time.
So I know he reached out about, were they never moved to the township building?
The last I reached out, I have no idea where he lives, so I can't go. So I'll volunteer the truck.
Yeah, he's my next door neighbor, Jim, and that's why I was saying if you needed help, we have a trailer.
I still don't know where you live. So.
We live on Ways Run in Mount Olivet Farms off of Walker Road.
Okay. What would be his address then?
He may be 23. I'm not exactly sure. I never looked that close. I'll email you his address. And I can also stop by and ask him if there's a good time. I guess my only concern would be is maybe to make sure if you want, my husband might know better. Maybe he can look and see if they're even worth salvaging, because Paul might be right. Maybe they're not in the greatest shape anyway.
Yeah, you're right there. You might as well take advantage of that. And
yeah, I can even send you guys. I can go over and ask Dave, and I can take pictures of them and send them.
Yeah, have you or your husband bring like a screwdriver or a hammer, and you try to poke into it and see if it's got any, because they often rot from the inside out.
If the screwdriver goes in, you don't want it.
Okay, and I'll also take pictures, and I'll try to catch up with Dave soon.
Yeah, now, we might be able to use them for something else, but like along the trails down in the swampy area Matt was talking about. But I don't want to bury them and then they rot faster.
Right. Could you use them to line any of the trails in Banffshire?
Maybe where that trail is fallen down, we could use it to shore it up, but then again, it's a lot of work to put in a rotted timber, so that wouldn't. You want it to last 20 years, not 5.
Okay.
And I know Jeff had the idea of using stone or hardscaping instead of the timbers, because it would last longer. So we have to consider that too.
Yeah, I think I would like to fix this project once and not have to have it become an issue again for the next.
Right. Yeah, so I don't want to turn down his timbers. I don't know if they're right for this project. We just need to check into that. All right.
Okay, I will catch up with Dave, and I will get pictures and have Eric check to see if they seem.
Just sneak over there around midnight with a flashlight and a screwdriver. He won't mind.
Now he has chickens. I got to make sure I don't wake up his chickens.
All right, are we good with this topic, Greg?
Yeah, I think so. I'll reach out to Eric and follow up with these other questions. All right, so next we had the dog park, what's that?
Can I just insert myself here for a minute?
Sure.
because I'd kind of like to go. So the reason I'm here tonight is because I had attended another meeting of the London Britain Historical Commission on Tuesday morning. There's going to be a large turnover potentially in the White Clay Creek, the Friends of White Clay Creek board. And there may be openings for new members. I guess there's a moderate involvement in the part of the folks in London, Britain, some of whom are also participants in the Historical Commission. And I think it would be a good idea for the pro board to have a representative on that. And I think that it would be a really good idea to get involved with that as soon as possible, because apparently the National Park Service, the PA is developing a master plan for the new areas of White Clay Creek, many of which are in Franklin Township. And I think it would be desirable to have some eyes and ears there, and perhaps even make real input. And you guys are the natural victims for that, so to speak.
So Greg, do you have any, you were out with those people, right? Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, I met with Lexi, who is
Right.
What's that? I lost you.
You muted yourself, Paul.
Is she the park manager?
Yes.
Yeah, she's I guess the newly enacted park manager, correct?
Right.
But yeah, we didn't talk anything about the Friends of White Clay.
No, so the Friends of White Clay are a private organization that acts as support locally, and they seek to raise funds and that sort of thing. So they draw from the townships that are involved. And they are, I mean, right now, some of the strong focus is really towards the Evans House, which is in the London Britain part of White Clay Creek. That was the house that suffered the fire not so long ago. But I just think that this is the sort of the second time I've actually been asked outright as I'm sitting there. And this is sort of the second time in which I've said, well, I think, the pro board's the logical connection, because I'm attending too many meetings and I'm not a parks person anyway.
So I appreciate that, Paul, and you set it up before. And then when that woman came down from the parks and I think the guy from Friends of Franklin was supposed to meet as well.
Is that Scotty Crowder?
I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't invited.
He's the president of the Friends of White Clay.
But I thought that had made the connection, but maybe it didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're looking for, we say, a more permanent union.
Right.
And not just establishing a connection, but because there's going to be these openings on the board, there at least a couple members who are on the London Britain board, not just Jim Martin, but now Starsman, I think it was Starsman, maybe John Starsman, can't remember, was thinking that it would be good to have somebody from Franklin involved on the board. Anyway, I said I would bring the information along to you folks. So that's kind of why I'm here tonight.
Well, I'm sorry you had to wait so long to say that. You should have spoke up sooner.
No, it's all right. I find a lot of what you're doing interesting, but I've been in far too many Zoom meetings lately, and I'm beginning to suffer Zoom fatigue. And I got quite a kick out of shutting down a meeting last night after 10 minutes and telling a couple people to go away. But yeah, so it's like, yeah, I'm losing interest, and since I'm not assigned to work on this board, I'd like to say good night. Wish you the best. I've delivered my message.
Thank you.
And if you are looking for volunteers at various times, I might be available. I'm going to have more time next year than I did this year. So,
all right. And do we have your contact info, Paul?
all you have to do is talk to Jeff, and he can get a hold of me.
Okay.
Paul has my contact info too.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fairly easy to find. You just send a message through the township. They all know where I live, and they know my.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for waiting so long to talk to us.
It's all right. I didn't want to interrupt the other people, but now that you were dealing with more regular business, I thought I'd break in.
Sure.
Nice evening, guys.
All right, thanks, Paul.
All right. Take care, Paul.
So I mean, no one's jumping at the chance to be on there, but I'm kind of volunteered out. But it might be something we mentioned to the Board of Supervisors to post on the website, or maybe one of them is interested. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm already serving on this board and serving on a second board, so I'm kind of stretched thin myself. But yeah, maybe somebody will be interested.
So Jeff, could you take that as a go-do to pass that along to Joan to maybe have the supervisors announce it at their meeting or something?
Yes, sir.
Paul, is this something that you met my husband Eric, and he likes to work on the trails? Is this something that he?
Yeah, perfect.
I'm not volunteering him yet. I actually have to
No,
wait.
you just did.
No, my dad passed away, so we have a lot of paperwork, and I know I've been kind of using my dad, but it's just so much paperwork. I know a lot of other people have gone through this, and you had mentioned that, it's hard to go through, and I know Jeff has gone through this, but it's so much paperwork I never had imagined. And with coronavirus, it makes everything harder. So
Oh yeah.
just to make an appointment at a bank, it's like an impossible task right now. But I'll ask him if something, I can't imagine it's maybe the same thing, a once a month meeting, and he would just be able to just present it to you guys. Is that?
Yeah, and since you all live right near the White Clay Creek Elk Branch or whatever it's called, that would be a good fit for him because he's interested in that part of the preserve there.
So Jeff, I don't want to take it away if there's somebody else that you might have in mind, but I will ask him and I will have him reach out to you.
No, that's fine. I was just gonna, again, alert the board, and if we wanted, we could post it on Facebook. So just tell me and I'm happy to help.
Okay, I will ask him and I will reach out to you one way or the other.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And Paul, he wanted me to tell you as he keeps peeking in here, next time you need more stuff cut out, he wants to use all the tools that he bought,
Okay.
to do more trail work. So
Great. Yeah. Yeah, you heard me. The next big trail project is to get that machine in that can cut the trail on the side of the hill. That's a lot of digging by hand. So
okay.
we need to do that. So I'll call him for that and the bridge. Okay. But yeah, I appreciate his help. But tell him that offer is interesting right now because they're laying out trails in that section of the White Clay Creek Park. And so it would be a more fun possibility to lay out the trails instead of just maintaining them.
Okay. And he just has experience doing that, and
right.
He sounds like he'd be a good fit, but I also don't want to take it away from anybody else. So.
All right. Anything else, or can I move on? All right. So I just wanted to mention on the dog park that I did reach out. Jeff sent me those pictures of that fence. So I forwarded that along and asked before we had the 5-foot high fence, and I got a new estimates for the 4-foot high and similar to those photos that Jeff sent. So the two companies, one was AK Fencing, and they quoted, I know we're still waiting on the survey to even decide if we're doing this, but The AK fencing was $8,515. And J and A fencing was $11,165. So pretty significant difference there. But that's all I wanted to mention on that part.
Well, I would think we'd also consider that Jeff has secured some fence post diggers or drivers. And you had given the price of the material one time, and that
Right.
we might consider that one of our projects. If it's decided we go forward, we'll look at doing it ourselves.
Okay. All right.
Thanks for getting the pricing, Greg.
Yeah, no problem. So the FSA projects, I just put that on there if anyone had anything to add or.
The FSA has been out there in the parks lately. Did a lot of cleaning and cutting along the border of the park from where the fields are mowed, fine mowed, all the way down along the road, all the way to the lower pavilion, back over to the other far parking lot. And this past Sunday, they walked the edge of the woods from that lower park lot all the way back up to the front of the park again, just to get the low hanging stuff that really gets in the way of the guys that are mowing the fields, and or when any bigger tractor mowing's done. They also were out there the last 2 weekends and did some painting on all the playground equipment, touched it up, made it look a whole lot better down there. I know Jeff purchased a new swing, and I was able to get down there also this weekend and get that replaced on the one swing set. So from an equipment standpoint in the park, everything's looking real good right now.
Nice.
So, Jim, I think that's great to do other work. I didn't realize they were doing that. I'm thinking we're required to have what's it called? Disclaimer, whatever. Sign a piece of paper signing your life away when you volunteer for the township. Do you guys do that for volunteer work like that?
On a regular basis, no. I don't know if one was established a long time ago or not. But it would be covered under our liability anyway. Should be that we cover on ourselves.
No, that's not the point. It's not about liability. It's about workers' comp claims. So the township has been advised by their attorney that whenever a volunteer group comes in, doesn't matter who you work for, you could work for PICO. But a volunteer group has to sign this waiver stating that you understand you're a volunteer and that if you're injured, you cannot claim workers' comp against the township. Because some of the other townships that have been represented by our attorneys have had that happen to them.
We'll have to look into that and clarify that then.
Yeah, so it's something easy. Joan can provide the paper.
Right.
And for this group and for your group probably as well, I think we could do it as a once a year thing where you just make sure everyone in the whole membership is a signatory to this, and it would cover like the events for the year or something. I don't know. And
I think that might be a good idea. Never thought of it in that regards. Because I know I have signed stuff for other things with the township in the past.
We should do the same for our group too. Greg, is get one that's like for us, for anybody doing projects for the year. And then if we go out and do a project and we have new people show up or, spouses or whatever, we should have a paper they can sign.
Right. All right. And so Jim, is it like when I know the projects that we discussed is like, what are you, like, where are you guys coming up with the projects? Are you just going off that list that we?
The FSA has a service project lead in the group, and he coordinates with Jeff.
Okay, gotcha.
So they come up with a wish list or suggested items. Could you guys take a look at this or do this for us? And then they work through that list.
And when I've talked to their lead in the past, I've always told them that trails are the first priority. And sometimes the reply back to me is not everyone wants to work on the trails. So I try and come up with a diverse list, not trying to push anyone except to the trails first. That's always the first stop for me.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's, that sounds like a good arrangement. And you know, if Jeff is like directing you or pre-approving the project, I think that's great. But you know, as this pro board needs to take ownership of the parks and what goes on in them. Like if something's out there happening and we don't even know about it, that's not a good situation. So if there's any way to let us know ahead of time, or just send an email, hey, you know, maybe some of us can come help you, that, hey, we're volunteering this weekend and this is the project, right? That would be good to let us all know what's going on, just as a courtesy, I think.
Sure, noted.
Yeah, Jim, in the past, you mentioned you guys have been cutting vines in Banffshire, and I was curious where that is, because I haven't been able to find any of the.
I don't know, Paul, because I haven't been over there to cut any vines. If memory serves me correctly, from some of the emails, when you go into the parking lot there off of the road, it's up to the left somewhere up in there, and I don't know exactly or how far they've progressed. So
Yeah, I heard you mention at the last supervisor's update Zoom meeting, and
yeah, that they were in there.
Yeah, I was curious because the day that they scheduled to do it, I went out and couldn't find anybody. So then the weekend after, I was walking around and I didn't see any fresh vines. So maybe they didn't get too much done or something. Maybe
I don't know.
I'll ask Bob Magnus to give us an update via email.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Greg?
Yeah.
Kind of just jumping off what Paul said about the volunteers, is it possible that we could use like an app or something? I was just looking at apps, and we could put the documentation, Paul, that you said needs to be signed. They could maybe do it through the app, if that's something maybe we could find out about doing.
Yeah, you'd have to ask the attorney if electronic signature is appropriate. I have no idea.
Okay, is that something I would ask Joan
Yeah.
to communicate? Okay. I mean, I'll just look into it if we just have a better way of trying to organize volunteers. I just know that, what are we going to do with all these papers that people are signing? How do you keep track of them and everything?
We give them to Joan.
We scan them in and then put them on the network drive.
Okay. Jeff, do you think it's possible that it could be done through an app, or you think it would be?
That's something either you or I could check into. That's, if you want to do it, great. If not, I can reach out to our insurance company and our solicitor.
Okay, if yeah, maybe when I catch up with you next week, I'll I'll see if that's possible, and we can see if that's something Joan could ask the attorney if it's fine.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
So one last point on that, Jeff, was that Joan was going to come up with a paper for this group to sign. She might have forgot about it with all the commotion in the office lately. That annual commitment.
You're talking about the waiver form?
The waiver form, yeah. She and I discussed this idea of an annual waiver, and she was going to come up with a generic one for all projects under the pro committee, and I haven't seen it yet.
I will talk to her about it tomorrow, but again, in the past, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, between our insurance company and the solicitor, they did come up with a waiver form for volunteers to sign.
No,
so I can only
I know, but it's always been project specific. All the ones I've signed have been project, and we had said we need a generic one that covers us for a whole year.
No, I understand, sir. What I was going to say is I think it can be altered pretty easily and painlessly.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Moving on. So the boardwalks at Crosson, I know we talked a little bit. Jim, did you get a chance? I think you were going to reach out to the troop about whether, they could repair that or.
The person I was looking for, there was a scout event earlier this month, and of course they weren't there. And I don't have his other contact, but I think Paul said he talked to someone.
Yeah, so it just so happened that I met the father out in the park for a different Eagle Scout project with his second son, and we asked him to look into fixing it, but I haven't heard back from him, Jim. So if you can, I don't have any contact information for the guy or anything.
What was his name? You remember?
Austin Gatos did it originally, and I think he lives in Crossan Estates.
Yeah, I actually, I took a picture of the sign. I'm looking on my phone for it here. I don't remember the dad's name. The dad's name wouldn't be on the sign. Yeah, the sign just says built by Austin Gatos, Gaydos.
Yeah, and the second son, same last name, Ryan was the second son. So Ryan Gatos. So Jim, you
Yeah,
don't have any?
I'll stay on it.
All right, sounds good.
The people I know from, and that was 191, correct?
191.
191.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
And so the request I made of the father is that when they put them back, they elevate them another 6 inches. So they have 6-inch timbers spiked into the ground. And he said, we spiked them in, but what they didn't do is attach the boardwalks to the timbers very well. So the request was to elevate them one more timber. So you get another 6 inches up so the water can pass under them easier if it's, a little water. And then better fasten them to the timbers with straps or big lag bolts or whatever, so that if you get high water again, they'll hopefully stay in place a little better.
Hey, you want them 12 inches off the ground?
No, the 6-inch ones are flush with the surface.
Okay.
And so the next ones would just be 6 inches off the ground.
Okay.
And if you go too high, then it becomes kind of a hazard, people falling off it.
Right, and you need railings.
Yeah, well, you don't need railings till 30 inches. But it just becomes more of a hazard. And then I did ask that he not put 90-degree turns in there, if he could lay them with gentle turns, because the bikers can't handle 90-degree turns. Not possible. Anyway, that was my 2 cents on it.
All right, moving on. So next was the 2021 budget for the Pro Board. Mary reached out and mentioned that they're working on the budget and they need us to we discussed it and we kind of need to come up with, what our estimated budget's going to be for the projects. And I know there was there's kind of a lot of gray area because I'm not sure if that would include the Boy Scout projects, and include other things that could, cut into the budget pretty quickly. So I did reach out to her to confirm that. But basically, we do need to put together a list and kind of compile of what we think the 2021 budget would be for us, because they do want to allocate money for us. She said it can be carried over if the money is not completely used in 2021. So I don't know if I don't really know. I mean, should we start listing stuff now and try to get through that, you think?
Well, how many more topics do we have? Because it's pretty late.
Yeah, I know.
I don't have your agenda open.
I only have a couple more.
How about we just, anybody want to throw out a few topics and we'll write them down and then we can assemble the numbers later on a spreadsheet, right?
Could we do a shared Google Sheets and then email it to everybody? And as people think of things, they can add it to the.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I don't know how to do that, so you do that.
I will get one of my kids to. My kids showed me how to do it. They showed me to do how for my dad's finances. They listed all his expenses and all the bills, so they can show us. But it's amazing. You just add it, and then everybody can see the addition.
So. Off the top of my head, though, like the healing garden, but I have no idea what that would cost, but that's going to be a project. Right. And then the dog park is a project. And then
I know trail maintenance.
Trail maintenance, yeah. Like they've been paying to mow Ford Farm this year.
Right, the mowing, the bridge, depending on if we get a grant for that.
And then we were talking about possibly color coding the tennis courts next year. And then there were requests, we received multiple requests about color coding the pickleball court and then orienting that so we can get 2 courts in there instead of 1. So I've made calls to several companies and I'm hoping to get pricing over the next week or 2 for that. And I've also been working on getting pricing for a replacement of that water fountain.
So Jeff, if I shared this Google Sheets to you, you could add that pricing right into the sheet if I put a line item for it?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, and then, I don't know if you remember, Joan at one point in the beginning had shared with us the budget from the past years. And so I could use.
But wait, my understanding is the park budget will remain, and then this is in addition to.
So we wouldn't have to include mowing.
I don't know, maybe.
No, you wouldn't include regular maintenance like mowing. All the general maintenance, mowing, weed and feed is already accounted for. So this would be above and beyond.
So the bathrooms, all that stuff would stay separate.
The bathrooms have been renovated.
But no, but like the maintenance, somebody cleans the bathrooms. That was on
Well, that's already been allocated in that money.
and then the cell phone money, the cell tower money, that was offset with that money.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So this would just be our new projects that we're anticipating to come across. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I got it. Yeah.
Okay. So healing guards, dog park, trail maintenance, the bridge, tennis courts, pickleball courts.
And then the water fountain.
Water fountain.
And Paul, would we put the Bamshire Bridge on there? That's the bridge.
Listed as a project because it might cost money. It might not. It might be spent this year, not next year. This is next year's budget we're talking about. So
right.
And did you have the Boy Scout projects on there, the Eagle Scout?
Yeah, put that on there.
Okay.
If we get 1 or 2 projects a year, that's $1,000, and I don't know if it comes out of our budget or some other Boy Scout budget. I don't know.
Right.
They might budget for that already somewhere in the general fund. I would prefer they do it, not us, because not every Boy Scout project is park related.
You have to be careful too right now because the Boy Scouts filed for bankruptcy. So I'm not sure how much money they're going to be able to have.
No, the Boy Scouts don't actually give any money. The scout is responsible for his own fundraising.
And that was Boy Scouts National that filed. Chester County Council is not bankrupt.
So if I just list these, Paul and Greg, then you guys can make adjustments. I'll share the document with you and you can share it. But then like if Jeff gets the price for the tennis courts, the pickleball courts, he can put those in there.
Yeah, share it with everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, that works.
And then if anybody how about the signage? The signage we're talking about for Crossland Park, that would be part of this budget, or do we think we're going
this year?
That would be this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
But we might want additional signage for next year for other places.
Yes.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Miscellaneous.
Here's one is signs for preserved parcels.
Okay.
I'd have to explain that later, but that's a wish list item.
Okay, so should that be signage for 2021 and signage for preserved parcels, 2 separate items?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on the budget? Okay. So I just wanted to clarify, I put the wrong address on this property, but it's a potential easement property, and that the property I gave out was incorrect, so don't go off of that. But we're talking with Natural Lands and hopefully going to talk with the property owner, and they have a potential interest, like I said, in putting an easement on the property. And that's kind of where it stands right now. I don't know if anyone wanted to add anything in there.
Yeah, so I want to add, I'll be quick because I know it's late, but as part of our Parks and Recreation Open Space Committee, some of our role will be to try to preserve properties in the township if this group agrees to do that, right? But that's in our goals. And preserving a property, you just heard from Jack and Robin how it's done, but it's a sensitive topic to the homeowner. Like some people don't want their neighbors to know that they're thinking of easing a property because, you know, that implies they might be selling or they're going to move to Florida or whatever. It's none of their business. And so people like to keep it private because they may not do it and they don't want that news to get out that they were considering it. Or for financial reasons, right? There might be something going on with the family that we don't know about that they don't want this to become public. So we might handle information in this group that we can't let out to the public, but this is a public meeting. So when Greg said there's a property on Auburn Road, that's all we should say. We shouldn't give the address or the name of the owner or tax ID information, anything like that. We just say it's a property in Auburn. And then we as a group just know it as the Auburn project or something. And if we do need to discuss details like, hey, we met with the owner and this is what was said, we should go into what we call executive session. So we have a right to do that as a group where we can say, this isn't a public part of the meeting, this is a private part of the meeting, because we're discussing land preservation or land purchases. And for that's a reason you can have a private meeting. So, but then if we do have that, I ask that all of you just keep our information private. You know, you don't go spouting it off or posting it on Facebook or whatever. That won't work, right? If we're not trusted by the homeowners, we're not going to get anything done. So that's all there is to say about that one, though. What Greg said is, you know, there's a family that's interested. It's not a wonderful project, but it's an interesting project. So just taking a look at it with Natural Lands Trust. And I'd say next month we'll have a better update for you and we can give you some more details. How's that? And the reason I'm talking about it is because I've been talking to the people for about 10 years and it's finally come to fruition. And that's kind of typical. It takes years to get people interested and actually sitting at the table.
Yeah, so it's actually good I sent out the wrong address.
Yes. But it's important you say it's the wrong address because if these papers go into like some sort of public repository as our minutes, we want to take that address off because whoever lives at that address is going to be like, what the hell is this?
Right. Right.
And the address you gave isn't even in Franklin Township. So that's what makes it funny.
Yeah, I don't, for some reason, I according to the multi-list, that's what the address is, but regardless, that's not it. So anyway. All right. Wrapping it up. We're on the final stretch. So I just added the crossing park safety because you mentioned earlier, we've noticed that there's kind of been a lot of hanging out. It's kind of the hangout spot down at that lower pavilion in Crossing Park. And I've noticed some sort of drug paraphernalia in the parking lot. I've smelled marijuana. And I've seen kids down there that look like they're drinking. So I mean, I don't know if that warrants that we add a camera or something down there, or, you know, even a fake trail cam in the pavilion or something to.
That's not the only park where illegal tasks are taking place.
Oh, I'm sure.
Banishire, over there at State, not State, Schoolhouse and 841. That parking lot was known for good drug dealing for a while. So it's out there.
But
yeah,
Jim, Jeff has a trail camera at Banffshire and he gave some excellent photos to the state police. And they started checking on the lot. And I think that's really calmed down over there at Banffshire.
I'm just saying, it's just been happening everywhere. But yeah, I think a camera in that lower pavilion, somewhere down in there, you know, even if we mounted it up in a tree, you know, to oversee the area might not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
Agree
Greg,
with
can I add that as one of the line items, safety or,
Yeah,
security?
yeah, I think so. Cause I mean, I've seen it at least 3 times where kids are hanging out down there and it's pretty secluded in that section. So it's a good spot to do illegal activities at this point.
Hopefully it'll get better with the weather, but if in the new budget year, we could address getting
Right.
more cameras. Okay.
Even if we put a, smile, you're on camera sign down there.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, where's the camera?
I'm going to be in contact with a couple of my friends within the state police again, because I've witnessed a lot of the same things Mr. Sachs has as well.
Yeah, and I've even in the parking lot, I've seen people who have been doing burnouts or kind of donuts in the parking lot. So there's a lot of not great things happening in that section.
Yeah, and I definitely concur with you. I've been down there a couple times recently myself. Lower Pavilion really is a hot spot for, I guess, what would be illegal activity.
Right.
Do see
So, Jeff, could we make the action item that Jeff is going to mention to the state police to maybe check on it and do some passes? They'll do some passes, and once the kids get the wind that the police are showing up, twice a week, it'll really calm it down.
I can do that.
All right. The only other thing I jotted down, I think from the last meeting, that you guys, I don't know if Paul or anyone else wanted to talk about the trail work at Banffshire. Excuse me.
It was what I'd already said, that we need to do some earth moving work, and that's beyond me. And it was just coincidence that Matt had mentioned that $700. So that would be a line item in the budget for next year, is renting this trail machine that can cut earth. I don't know, we might put it in there to rent it once a year or twice a year or something like that would be my preference to fix that up.
Well, is that specific to a park, or should I put it in as general rent?
No, that's general, because Crossan definitely has some places where it's needed. And fortunately, though, Matt's been doing a lot of the work on the new trails with that machine, but for the old trails, we might have to fund it once or twice or something, And,
Okay.
And maybe we don't, though. Maybe we rent it for a few years and then we don't need it for 5. Who knows?
Okay, so and I'm not going to fill in any of the numbers if you hear back from Matt, and you can fill in numbers on the shared sheet.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's all I had. Did anyone else have any topics or comments?
I have just one. Has anybody looked at the new website on Franklin Township?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have.
Have you gone to the preserves and parks? Because they took Crossan off the master page. You have to kind of go down, and there's like a blue box with a whole bunch of stuff listed, and it's in the middle of that. So and if we're trying to get people to use it and go there, and that's should be like one of the first ones that pop up.
There have been several issues with this transfer over with Civic Plus. So I know Joan and both Dave Gerstenhaber have been talking to them quite a lot. So hopefully we're going to be seeing a change here coming up.
So is somebody sharing it? I have it open. I can share it.
I'm looking at it now, but I don't have it on my iPad.
Oh, here it is. Share screen. Technologically challenged here. So here's the new website. And so where do we go under about? Here it is. So it is here. It's alphabetical. So deer hunting program, and then Crossan Park, and then Franklin Township open space program. So it does have top billing here, but you're saying it's somewhere else too?
If you go back to the home page, there's a little tab for
Yeah,
parks and preserves, I think. Is that what you're talking about?
yeah,
There
right
it
there,
is.
parks and preserves.
I see. I did not even see that. Well, it goes to the same place.
Yeah, but see how it like highlights all the preserves, but then you gotta go over, you know what I mean?
Oh, it should be on this right side, you're saying.
Yes, exactly.
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
Because people aren't gonna think it's there.
So, Jeff, could you take that? I think they tried to highlight it here because but this is the opening page. So yeah, it should be on the opening page.
And Paul, if you use the mobile app, which people might use at the park, you don't even get that drop down menu. You just have to go to the smaller parts. So I'm looking on the mobile, like on my phone, and the only spot you can hit is the Parks and Preserve tab, and then you just assume it's not there because it's not listed on the phone.
Yeah.
Oh, good point.
So if you use your phone while you're at the park, it doesn't show up at all.
Jim, I noticed this deer hunting program link. It used to take you to a calendar for the hunters, but it doesn't anymore. And so it says just go to the hunter's website. So it says there will be archery hunting, and then it says they will do as they have done in the past, post a calendar on their website, letting people know if there will be hunters. And I would suggest we have a link to their website because it doesn't give you any instructions how to find their website, which seemed a little bit odd, right? There used to be one on the old one.
I should have to correct that.
Yeah. But then if you go to the Franklin Township Hunters Association, there is no more calendar feature. The calendar feature has been disabled or removed. And maybe it's for members only or something. You know what I mean? But it's the intent was, it's in the rules that the public can look rather than going out to the park and then getting turned away. They can look here first. That was the idea. Well, it's not opening up, but okay. Well, I don't want to hold everybody to watch that, but Jim, maybe you could take that as a good do to just check on that for us, please. And
See what's up with that.
yeah, but don't go in as a member. Go in as a member of the public where
Yeah. Yeah, I go through the township.
Yeah. Okay, and then Jeff, could you comment to Joan about the giving Crossan top billing and putting a link to the FSA website? There currently is no link or even a list of their website. It just says go to their website.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right.
Late.
All right. Lastly, any other public comment or additional comments from anybody? All right. Well, I guess that wraps it up.
Thanks, Craig.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good one.